Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk coming at you on a Wednesday. Hi, hello, how are you? Hope you're having a great hump day so far, whether you're listening on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, online at 580wibw.com, or watching the live video stream on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. However you're consuming the program today, thank you for being along for the ride. I am Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is across from me. Trenton Craxner, our producer engineer / summer intern, is across the glass. It is the three of us today. Brendan Warzinski remains on vacation. He will be back next week. I will be with you until 4 o'clock. Baby watch has reached the point where things are not imminent as I sit here, but things are going to start to move in that direction. And I will be departing the program at the end of the 3 o'clock hour today, and I will be joining my wife, and we will be heading to the hospital to make sure that things go smoothly from here and that baby boy Lucero is delivered. So that's happening. My wife told me that when they told us this morning, we went to an appointment this morning, and they said, so yeah, it's probably about time to start the process and induce labor and have a baby. And by the way, you should do that today. My wife said I looked at that moment like I had seen a ghost. It's kind of the in-between from what I sort of expected it to be. On the one hand, there's your water breaks. Yep, time to go. Grab everything and skedaddle on down to the hospital. And then there's the other outcome, which I thought was, okay, we're going to make an appointment to induce, and we're going to, plan our day around it, maybe have a nice lunch beforehand, and then head on over to the hospital and induce and go through the process. This was in between. This was like the frantic inducement, if it can be put in such a way. So that is what's happening with me personally. I know some of you have been asking, but I will be handing the reins to Spencer and Trenton in the 4 o'clock hour, and they will have the show Thursday and Friday. Giving the kids the keys. Trust you to get us around the block without wrecking the vehicle.
The youngest in charge movement.
Yeah, we'll hope for the best. We trust you guys.
We got a lot to do with this final hour of the show today. So
good. Yeah. You guys are.
It's hard to throw or to derail a train that has pretty big objectives.
Well, you're going to be talking to Tim Fitzgerald in that 4 o'clock hour, and he will do whatever he can to derail you.
Yeah, that's true.
You never know with Tim Fitzgerald, who will join us for the Wildcat Wrap Up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. But no, that's what's happening. It is, as Christopher puts it in the YouTube live chat, it is baby time. So I'll be out of here at 4, but we are going until 5 as a radio program today. And getting out of the way for Royals baseball, game 2 of their 3-game series in Cleveland against the Guardians. Pre-game coverage at 5, first pitch at 5:40. So a shortened edition today here of 580 Sports Talk, coming to you live once again from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. All of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver. Use your rideshare app or plan ahead for a sober ride home. Just because it is a short show today does not mean we are not jam-packed with content. Lots to talk about. The most painful Royals loss to date in the 2024 season. A 5-0 lead with the best pitcher in the American League on the mound, and you don't win the game? That's tough. We'll talk about it. We'll break it down. We'll feel some feelings. And we'll preview tonight's game as well. Going to be a bullpen game for the Guardians, and Brady Singer on the bump for the Royals. We'll preview that a little bit later on this hour. Some big KU basketball news. Marco Jackson out for the year. Remember that scrimmage Michael Swain was at? We were talking to him about yesterday. Yeah, they brought it to a halt early because Marco Jackson tore his patellar tendon. Terrible injury. That's a 12-month recovery. So
did he tell us somebody got injured yesterday?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think
there
so.
was no
I was
indication.
shocked when I saw this.
And he may have left before all that happened.
That's true.
He may have. Can't swear to that 100%.
No.
Or maybe it was because I think what I read yesterday at the time was they didn't think it was that big an injury, that they had only immobilized his leg as a precaution. But then I said, you don't immobilize the leg if something's like if everything's okay, you don't immobilize the leg. So it's a torn patellar tendon for Marco Jackson. Terrible injury, terrible circumstances. He's going to miss the season. Where does KU go from there? We had already heard that KU is interested in adding one more player. Does it become even more of a necessity with the loss of the sophomore guard? We'll get there a little bit later on. We'll also talk a little more K-State basketball with the addition of Ugonna Onyenso, which we talked about yesterday, the big man, former Kentucky Wildcat, committing to play at Kansas State. A lot of people are fired up for this edition, and a couple of national pundits think that the roster that Jerome Tang is putting together could contend in the Big 12. Are they right? Are they onto something, or is that a bridge too far in what I expect to be the best league in college basketball once again next year? We will discuss some K-State hoops, and of course, we'll talk all things K-State with the great Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com on a Wildcat Wrap-Up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We'll also talk some Chiefs, more conversation about the future, the present, and the future of the linebacking core, and why I'm starting to talk myself out of the certainty I once had that the Chiefs would extend Nick Bolton. We'll explain what we mean in relation to how Pro Football Focus ranks the linebackers in the National Football League heading into the 2024 season. We'll also play some One Gotta Go. Of course, we'll have sports headlines, top of the 4 o'clock hour because of a shortened show. We'll play What Is Wrong With You. And we will, of course, welcome your comments and your thoughts on the YouTube live chat. If you are watching us on YouTube today, subscribe to the YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Watch the show live. You can participate in the live chat. We love to read those comments. So you can check us out on YouTube. You can also comment if you're watching on Facebook at WIBW News or on Twitter at 580 Sports Talk on Twitter. You can comment there, and we see all of those. We appreciate you being involved. The Top City Metal Supply text line is open as well, and we appreciate your texts, and we'll read your texts throughout today's show. Those are the niceties. That's the show preview. Let's get into it. No other way to describe it. Last night was a gut punch of a loss for the Kansas City Royals. You have a 5-0 lead in the fourth with Seth Lugo on the bump. That feels like money in the bank, doesn't it? But the funny thing about baseball, just when you think you've got it all figured out, baseball will turn around and surprise you. And that game all went to pieces. The turning point is the 7th inning. And I think there's a lot to discuss about how that inning was handled last night, because obviously that is where the game turned. The Royals went into the 7th with a 5-3 lead. Cleveland had turned the game over to the bullpen at that point. So runs are going to be hard to come by against the Cleveland bullpen. They had lined up where their best guys were going to handle the final 10 outs. Cade Smith for 4, Scott Barlow for 3, Emmanuel Clase for 3 if they got to the plus side. I don't know what they would have done in the 9th inning had they not taken the lead. But the Royals have the lead going into the bottom of the 7th inning. Seth Lugo is at 90-plus pitches. He gave up the 3 runs in the 4th, but he had difficulty in the 5th, as you may recall, loading the bases in the 5th before getting out of that jam with strikeouts of Jimenez and Ramirez. Sailed through the 6th, facing the bottom 3 in the order for the 3rd time in the 7th inning. Hindsight, of course, is 20/20. It's always the wrong decision when it doesn't work, right? Like every decision is either right or wrong based on what ends up happening. But if we can remove the hindsight of this for a second, was it the right decision to leave Seth Lugo in the ball game to start the 7th inning? Spencer, if you were watching along, following along, did you think it was the right move to send Seth Lugo out for the 7th?
Yes and no. He's your best pitcher so far this year.
Of course.
You got to trust in him.
Mm-hmm.
But he had already given up 3 runs. You were only up 2 in the 7th. But the yes part was you probably trust him more than you trust your bullpen on the road.
That's the big factor.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who do you trust more to get those 3 outs against the bottom third of the Cleveland order? Seth Lugo on 90-plus pitches or a completely fresh? And at that point, you know, you're probably not to your back end of the bullpen. But again, we have seen Matt Quatrero in the past when he's had the benefit of a day off before a game, or he's had the benefit of not having to use his plus side relievers in a game. We have seen him be aggressive and figure out, okay, if I've got 9 outs, I'm going to use my two best guys to get those 9 outs. It's going to be Schreiber, and it's going to be Schreiber until I runs out of steam, and then it's going to be MacArthur for the rest of them. We saw him do that. It was a game against Toronto earlier this year on a homestand. It was one of the games where they beat Toronto at the K. It was a close game, a tight one that they won 3-2. And I don't remember if it was the Tuesday or the Wednesday game because they won both of them by the same score. But he had a fresh back end of the bullpen and decided, I'm going to lean on that with this lead. I'm going to just use the guys I trust the most right now. And Schreiber was in a good run of form at the time. He has not been of late. And MacArthur had been pitching well. He's had his struggles too since this moment. This is late April. This is a month ago. But in that scenario, Matt Quatraro trusted two guys to get 9 outs.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's even got 3 guys right now that he feels like are going to get him through 9 outs. I really feel like if the bullpen had been pitching better, had been deeper, then he might have gone to the pen after 6 innings for Lugo. Because, like we mentioned, this was not the best we've seen Seth Lugo this year. He gave up the 3 runs in the first 3 innings are as good as we've seen Seth Lugo. He wasn't missing a ton of bats, but you don't strike out this Cleveland lineup. They're really good at avoiding the K. The 4th, he runs into trouble, gives up the double to Kwan, the seeing eye single to Ramirez, the home run to Naylor, which, I mean, that's a changeup on the outside corner that Naylor hits over the big wall opposite field. That's big boy power. That's just an impressive home run. Give credit where it's due. And then in the 5th, he loads the bases, but he pitches out of that jam. This wasn't the best of Seth Lugo. Had Lugo been cruising, if it had been a 5-1 game, I would say, yeah, go ahead, leave Lugo out for the 7th. But I think it is fair to say, hey, maybe they should have been a little quicker on the draw there to get him out of the ball game. It was the Tuesday game, by the way, in that Toronto series. Waka only pitched into the 5th, and Chris Stratton got 5 outs, and then they had the final 7 outs. Schreiber went 1, and then he had MacArthur fresh for 2 innings. Not afraid to use MacArthur for a 2-out save, so maybe use your second best guy there in the 7th and start him with a fresh inning. That's the other thing with this Royals bullpen right now is that they've struggled with those dirty innings. They've struggled when being asked to come in and strand guys. That was not the case early in the season, but of late, that has been another issue. So Christopher, I think, is thinking the same way I am in the YouTube live chat. The bullpen's better. Lugo goes and takes a nap after 6. Yeah, that's probably true. Like if you've got prime HDH, right? Like all you need are 6 innings and then everybody can go take a nap because those guys are going to do their job. We know anything about this Royals bullpen, they don't exactly have that. Trenton, as you were watching the game last night,
I know he's got some big takes on this.
What did you think? Did you think they made the right decision leaving Lugo out to start the 7th?
Yes. I would say you're facing the bottom third of the order.
Mm-hmm.
One of those 3 guys gets on. Kwan comes up for a 4th time. Someone comes out of the bullpen.
You have the lefty ready for if you need him for Schneemann, the 9-hole hitter, and then for Kwan at the top of the order. Like he had the right guy, Quatraro, warming. He had Sam Long warming. I thought that was the right move. But yeah, like I'm with you. I think you start him in that inning. You trust him because his track record's been so good. A guy slugging 344 hit a 2-run home run. You can't predict that.
And he golfed it out, too.
He did.
It was a curveball down. And Will Brennan, I didn't think that should have been a single. The single up the middle, Will Brennan, I thought that was a good pitch, too, that Brennan just poked out into center where no one could get the baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was tough luck in that 7th inning against the 7 and 8 hitters. And then I thought Sam Long was pretty good. He pitched carefully to Ramirez and to Ramirez, and then Zerpa pitched carefully to Naylor, and then, you have the play, you have the ground ball from Zerpa, and Bobby Witt Jr. just doesn't make a play. I mean, you got to live with that.
Yeah, like, you can't predict baseball, like, writ large. Like, you do not think Tyler Freeman is going to hit a home run off of one of the best pitchers in the American League to date, and one of the best at avoiding home runs to date. You are not thinking Tyler Freeman's going to launch one and leave the park over that big wall in left field at Progressive Field. That's not quite 1 in a million, but if you're playing Stratomatic, that's like it's a 112, right? Like you roll that's not a common outcome. You're not expecting that. The other tipping point decision, I guess, because they brought in Zerpa after Ramirez walked. So 2 out, Ramirez walks with the Quan at second. And I was totally fine with pitching around Naylor too with a base open. I know David Fry's got the best OPS in the American League with everybody who has more than 150 plate appearances. He's off to a great start. I would still rather take my chances with him, even without the platoon advantage, than I would with taking my chances with Josh Naylor, who's already got 16 home runs. So pitching around those two guys to load the bases for David Fry, I was fine with. That's where I thought maybe there should have been a right-hander up, because Fry is going to see a righty. Or it has been hitting lefties hard. You'd like him maybe to see a righty. You're hoping that either Long or Zerpa can get Naylor out, but I don't mind the plan being tread lightly with a guy who's already hit a home run in the game. Like, I don't think their approach was necessarily wrong. And then David Fry hits a routine ground ball. And what I think happened with Bobby Witt, I think he made a young player mistake, which he still is a young player in this league. I think he knew the runner. I think he knew that was Josh Naylor coming from first to second. I don't know how much of Josh Naylor you've watched. He's not exactly fleet of foot. He'd outrun all of us, but I don't. When it comes to guys in the league, he's one of the slower guys in baseball. But he had such a big lead off of first base, and I don't think Bobby Witt Jr. was quite aware of that. I think Witt thought he wouldn't have no problem. Like, you're already going through this as a player.
Yeah,
you know what your plan is. Like, this is little league stuff, right? Know what you're going to do when the ball's hit to you. And I think Bobby Witt Jr.'s thought was, if I got a ground ball carrying me up the middle, the runner is slow to first. I'm just going to I'm going to take it to second base. I'm not going to chance a throw if the ball's taking me up the middle. But Naylor had such a big lead, and he busted his tail down the line, which give him credit. Like, there are some guys who might give up on that play. Josh Naylor gave it a hard 90. Credit to him. That's a winning play. That's why that team is 40-20. But I do not think Witt had a sense, certainly not a good enough sense, of just how long that lead was for Naylor, and was caught off guard by the fact that Naylor was going to beat him to the bag. And then that resulted in the off-balance throw, Trenton, that ended up into the dugout and costing all 3 runs. So that's, maybe I'm being too nice to Bobby Witt Jr. here. He's a big leaguer. He's got to make a better throw. Maybe Vinny's got to pick that out of the dirt. But I do think what happened there is he was caught a little bit off guard by the situation. He knew the runner, but he didn't get a good enough sense of the lead and how little ground Naylor had to cover.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit true. But also, Nick Lofton had no chance of getting to second base. Like, the way the defense was aligned, Nick Lofton had no chance. Nick Lofton was taking an angle to go around Bobby Witt Jr. if the ball got by Bobby Witt Jr. on that play. He wasn't even trying to cover second. And, I mean, after he realized David Fry was still, 10 feet from first base, he had plenty of time to make a good throw because Fry wasn't busting it down the line. He's a catcher.
Yeah, and Witt's got one of the best arms in baseball. You'd think he could have, regathered and not thrown on the run, just let one rip and maybe gotten it to first base. And at the very least, if he does that, it's late? Okay, fine. It's 6-5. It's not 8-5 when the ball gets by and gets into the dugout. So
I will say he is the leader of this team, clearly, or one of the leaders. He's becoming one. And he really took it on the chin after the game with the reporters. And then
he did.
Quatrero kind of took it off of him a little bit and gave him the benefit of the doubt in his post game.
Yeah. And I think that this is a learning experience for a still young player, and I want to be careful to not be too hard on Bobby Witt Jr. because the reason they had a 5-0 lead was because Bobby Witt Jr. hit 2 of the most impressive home runs you're going to see anybody hit all season. Monster taters. Guys don't hit it out to that part of the park, that high up the bleachers at Progressive Field. Those were big boy dingers. But that throw cost you the ball game because once it got to 8-5 and there's 6 outs to go against that Cleveland bullpen, you don't feel great about getting a run. Never mind getting 3 to try and extend the game. Never mind getting 4 to try and win it. So unfortunate how it turned out, but I don't really think that it should have been handled any differently. Like, hindsight is 20/20. And it's easy to say, they should have never let Lugo face the bottom third of that order a third time. Man, he had blown Brennan away with a curveball the first time up. I thought he'd get the bottom third of the order. I really did. And Tyler Freeman took him. Sometimes Tyler Freeman takes Seth Lugo deep.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how in 162 games. And that's the thing we got to remember here is because I saw a lot of this on social media last night. A lot of, Well, there they go, proving it again that they're the same old Royals and they're not built for the big time or whatever it was. Look, man, baseball ain't football. We get another one of these tonight. We don't have a week to marinate on this. You don't have a small sample size of 16 games or 17 games where one of them means everything. There are no long-term truths you can take away from last night's result. Like there's no greater truth, no like overarching theme that you can take away from last night's game other than that's baseball. And sometimes you get beat by the 8-hole hitter slugging 344. Sometimes he pops one. Sometimes your Gold Glove caliber shortstop makes a misplay. It's 162 games. Nobody goes errorless. It doesn't happen. Unfortunate circumstances, a really disappointing way to start that series. You felt like you had the ability to set a tone in the series, to come in and knock the bully in the mouth in the American League Central, get the first game, put the pressure on Cleveland to get one of the next two or both of the next two. And now that's all flipped. Now the pressure's on the Royals tonight to figure out a way to win a bullpen game, to figure out how to get a good outing from Brady Singer. And that's not where you want to be when you're up 5-0 in the fourth inning and Seth Lugo's on the mound. That's not where you think you're going to be when those are your circumstances. We're going to take our first break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll talk about the good things from last night because there were more than a few. And we will preview tonight's contest. What can we expect from Brady Singer? What shape is the bullpen game going to take for the Guardians? We'll talk about all of that as we get things rolling on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. All of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver, use your rideshare app, or plan ahead for a sober ride home. Dan, Spencer, and Trenton with you on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk, with you until 5 today for Royals Baseball. Royals Baseball Network coverage of Game 2 of the Royals and Guardians series takes over at 5 o'clock with the first pitch scheduled for 5:40. From the YouTube live chat, our guy Vance checking in. Should turn off the music on the YouTube before I go any further. Vance says, why are the Royals reminding me of the 2013 Royals? Good offense and defense, but the bullpen is losing games. I went back and looked at the 2013 Royals bullpen. Early season, yeah, it was pretty rough. Then that group settled in. Greg Holland obviously was unbelievable that year, saved 47 games. Luke Hochevar ended up with an ERA sub-2. Lewis Coleman was a really impact call-up, had a .61 ERA that year. My guy, Tim Collins. Trent, you Tim Collins guy? Remember Tim Collins?
He was what, like 5'8", but had the biggest curveball you've ever seen and was a good lefty?
Not even 5'8". I think he was smaller than 5'8". I think he might have been 5'6". Was that the year? That wasn't the year Broxton was on the team, right? And they had Tim Collins and I think Everett Teaford both fit into a separate leg of Jonathan Broxton's pants. Broxton wasn't on the 2013 team, so that must have been the year before. But, yeah, like Tim Collins could fit into one leg and Everett Teaford could fit into the other leg of Jonathan Broxton's uniform pants.
Yeah. I remember Jonathan Broxton blew a lot of games, it felt like, that year.
He was pretty past it by the time he got to Kansas.
But that was the year Justin Maxwell hit a walk-off grand slam off Joakim Sawyer to end the year, I believe, against the Rangers.
Yes.
And then Justin Maxwell was never heard from again from the Royals.
He was not. Justin Maxwell was actually a nice little pickup late in the season that year. Boy, what a wild roster that 2013 Royals team was. Like the regulars are very like recognizable names in Royals history. Also, Miguel Tejada played 53 games for that team.
Really?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Was that when he got suspended for like PEDs
I
too?
think so. I think that's what happened.
Like 45 years old.
Jeff Francoeur played 59 games for that team. Rocky Great, Jamie Carroll played for that team. I did not remember that. Current Royal Will Smith was on that team and was pretty good. 33 innings, 3.24 ERA. Yeah, wild collection of Royals, that 2013 team. That was the harbinger of some later good fortune to come. That group obviously won back-to-back pennants the next 2 years. Went 86 and 76 that year. That was the table setting year for the pennant winning Royals. Always fun to remember that. Joe points out in the YouTube live chat, Tejada was playing some good baseball. He was reasonably productive for a 39-year-old in the middle infield, hitting 288, 20 RBI in 53 games.
True.
Yeah, you'll take that from a former MVP, Miguel Tejada. Man, I got to remember he played for the Royals. I'm going to have to use him in an immaculate grid sometime down the road. Anyhow, guys, would you take a player for the Royals who was a corner outfielder who was hitting 265 with a 346 on base and a 490 slug, like an 835? Would you take a corner outfielder with an 835 OPS for this team right now, Spencer?
Yeah.
What if I told you that was what Hunter Renfroe has been doing since May 12th? Those are Hunter Renfroe's numbers in his last 15 games.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the early May days when me, Dan Lucero, was on the air saying, "What is this guy doing?"
I was not kind to Hunter Renfroe. In fairness to Renfroe, not in fairness to me. Not the first time I've been loudly wrong, and it won't be the last. In fairness to Hunter Renfroe, early in the season, he was hitting into a lot of outs.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of loud outs. Like he was the most unlucky when it came to his batting average on balls in play. That sort of leveled out over his last 15 games. His batting average on balls in play is up to 297. But yeah, 13 of his last 49 at the plate with 7 extra base hits, including 2 home runs. He homered yesterday off of Tristan McKenzie. Starting to come around a little bit. Now, the full season numbers still look gross. Like, don't get me wrong. He still has to go to the plate and look up at a 583 season-long OPS. But maybe the worm turning a little bit for Hunter Renfroe. He's been a little bit more selectively deployed, too, which has probably helped him a little bit. It's been welcomed to see a little bit more production from that spot in the order for sure. He homered. Bobby Witt Jr. hit 2 homers last night. 2 of the more impressive ones you're going to see. You know who he's starting to remind me of? And this is my my Colorado bias showing perhaps a little bit, but he feels like if Troy Tulowitzki had been an 80 grade runner. Like that's what I'm getting from Bobby Witt Jr. When Troy Tulowitzki was healthy, he was the best shortstop in baseball. He hit for power. He hit for average. He drove in runs. He was tremendous with the glove, won Gold Gloves. Like that's what I'm getting with Bobby Witt Jr. Like I think he's that kind of player. I think he's going to be the kind of player that consistently delivers this kind of power, this kind of average. Right now, he's up to 319 with a 371 on base and a 565 slugging percentage. The arrow is just trending up and to the right in every statistical category you want from him. He's on pace to hit 30 home runs again. He's on pace to steal. I think it would be about 40, 45 bases. He stole 49 last year. Just a remarkable talent. And it was disappointing that he ended up making the error that cost him the game yesterday. But this is a special talent. And we got to see that on full display. And the fact that, too, this was the most meaningful Royals regular season game, most important, highest stakes, however you want to phrase it, in such a long time, and that he came out, went 3 for 5 with 2 dingers, like, it shows you that he's a player who's made for the moment.
Yeah.
And that he's not going to be cowed by the big moment. He's going to rise to those occasions. And that is an exciting thought with a guy that is this talented. He's just outrageously talented. Love watching him play. Tonight, game 2 of the series, and game 3 will be tomorrow afternoon. We'll be preempted. We'll be on after the Royals and the Guardians wrap up their series tomorrow. A 12:10 first pitch in tomorrow's game. The Guardians were TBD with their pitching rotation up until last night. Stephen Vogt announcing that tonight would be a bullpen game. They would start the game with Nick Sandlin. It'll be his first start of the season. The Guardians haven't done this yet. They haven't gone to the opener strategy, haven't done a bullpen game. But the reason that they have been doing this, that they are going to do it tonight, is because it is Logan Allen's turn in the rotation, and Allen has really struggled early in his starts. Allen's last time out, he gave up 7 runs in less than 2 innings against the Rockies in Denver. And so this is an effort on Stephen Vogt's part to try and get some good work out of Logan Allen and take away some of those early game pressures and see if maybe he handles things a little better coming in relief in the second or the third inning, trying to get the best out of his players. Wouldn't you know it? The Guardians lose a guy who I think is a Hall of Fame manager in Terry Francona after he retires. They hire a guy fresh off of his playing career in Stephen Vogt, just retired. And it turns out that he might have a real knack for this. Isn't that something? They go from one Hall of Fame caliber manager to a guy who, way too early to say that about Stephen Vogt. We're 60 games in. But somebody who does appear to have a knack and a feel for handling players, managing bullpens, doing all the little stuff that provides positive value to a team as much as you possibly can as the manager.
Would he be the youngest manager to win a World Series if they were to win one?
Boy, I don't think so. I think, I think Lou Boudreau was a player manager, the Cleveland then Indians when they won the World Series in 48. That could be wrong. That could be completely wrong.
Player managers, I forgot they were.
Player managers were very much a thing.
Yeah.
Back
I
in the
say
day.
this because MLB Network insider John Morrissey, he is predicting the Guardians to be a legit World Series contender.
You see the formula for them.
Yeah.
Don't you? After what we saw last night. Yeah, Lou Boudreau was 30 when he was the player manager. He was made player manager at 24.
Jeez.
And yeah, he managed all the way up through the rest of his playing career and then some after his playing career. Hall of Famer Lou Boudreau. Yeah, they won the series in 48 and they're still waiting for their next one. You see the formula for the Guardians. Like the top of the order is so pesky. Like it's so hard to get Stephen Kwan out. It's so hard to get Jose Ramirez out. Andres Jimenez is hitting like 430 with runners in scoring position. The only guy in baseball hitting better with runners in scoring position than Jimenez is Salvador Perez. So he's been a pest at the top of the order. Josh Naylor's bringing the thunder. David Fry's been the breakout. The bottom of the order, you'd like to think, kind of like the Royals, feel like eventually we'll get some guys going. We'll sort this out. We'll be able to get one or two guys at a time contributing enough from the bottom of the order to support the top half that you expect to be consistently excellent. And then, yeah, the starting pitching for Cleveland isn't great, but that bullpen is sure built for October. And you saw Cade Smith coming in, throwing darts. You saw Scott Barlow get the side, and you could tell it meant a lot to him to do that against his former team. And I don't know how anybody ever gets a hit off of Emmanuel Clase. Like, I really don't, especially not when he gets calls of full baseball off of the corner like he did on the 3-1 pitch to Bobby Witt Jr. And Witt swung through 100 up and in to end the game after that. But a 31-3 strikeout to walk ratio for Clase, a .30 ERA. It is a bullpen that is built for October. There is no doubt about that. If they get there, they just need to piece it together 5 innings at a time before they hand it off to those dudes. Because they got dudes on top of dudes on top of dudes. They got one guy. They keep Eli Morgan. They keep coming up with phantom injuries for him. He's been one of the most reliable guys the last 2 years. And he's getting outpitched by 8 guys. Like, he's their 9th best guy.
Yeah.
And like, if the Royals had Eli Morgan, he would have been in the 7th inning last night. He'd be their 3rd best guy. So they do. They've got embarrassment of riches in that bullpen. And we're going to see one of them in the 1st inning, at least tonight, in Nick Sandlin. Brady Singer against this lineup. Man, there's upside and there's downside. With a guy like Singer, who's mostly a 2-pitch guy, mostly a ground ball guy, mostly a contact guy, even though he is striking out 9 per 9, against a lineup that does make a lot of contact and can come at him from the left side where he's typically been uncomfortable. They're probably, I would imagine, I haven't seen the Guardians lineup, but I would imagine they'll go Juan, Jimenez, and Ramirez and Naylor left, switch left at the top of the order against Singer. That's a tough matchup for him. He's going to have to be really sharp. The thing about Singer that I'm excited for is in college, when Brady Singer was SEC Pitcher of the Year at Florida, he loved the big game. He loved the big moment. And this is as big a game as Brady Singer has pitched in as a major leaguer, especially when you're trying to pick up a teammate coming off of a loss. This is a big moment for Brady Singer, and I'm excited to see how he rises to it. But it is against a team that he struggled against. Last year, he had one start. He was great against Cleveland, 6 shutout innings. He had 2 other starts against Cleveland where he gave up 10 runs in 11 innings. So what are we going to get from Brady Singer tonight? It's a bit of a trick bag, but I'm excited to see mentally how Singer approaches this start. I think he's going to come at it with some fire, with some intensity, and I think that's what the Royals are going to need. Then Daniel Lynch, first start in place of the injured Michael Wacha. He goes tomorrow against Cleveland's best starting pitcher, Tanner Bybee. So not only is this a game that psychologically would be big for the Royals to win, you don't want to be in a spot where you're staring down a sweep and the pitching matchup is a guy you just called up against the other team's ace. That's not ideal. This is a big one. This is one the Royals have to get. It's why having last night's game get away was so painful to them. We're going to take another break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we return, KU basketball suffers a season-ending injury to one of their returning reserve guards. What does that mean for the Jayhawks moving forward? And does that give them even more urgency to act this offseason? We'll get to it next on 580 Sports Talk. Alpha Media is proud to partner with the Kansas Drive to Zero Coalition and encourages you to join Kansas fans with a plan. Always have a designated driver or other sober ride to and from your destination. Visit kansasdrivetozero.com. Dan Spencer Trenton with you. Coming up next hour, we're talking a little Chiefs football. We're going to talk about the linebacking group for the Chiefs and why I am growing less convinced that Nick Bolton is a part of the long-term future for the Chiefs. We'll play a round of One Gotta Go. Looking forward to that. And we will talk about expectations for K-State men's basketball. Are there going to actually be some next year? Sure seems like it. It sure seems like those are escalating after the addition of Ugonna Onyenso yesterday through the commitment through the transfer portal. So we'll get there in the 3 o'clock hour of the show. KU basketball suffered an injury loss at the camp, their basketball camp yesterday, and their camp and their scrimmage. Elmarco Jackson tore his patellar tendon. An MRI confirmed that last night in a press release from Kansas basketball. It says that surgery will be required within the next several days. A full recovery is anticipated. Elmarco will be able to assume non-contact basketball duties in the next several months, but the full rehab process will take approximately 12 months. We are all crushed. This is Bill Self speaking in the press release. We are all crushed by this. Elmarco has had a terrific spring. He has worked so hard and improved so much. This will be a challenge he will meet head on, and he will return as good as ever. You hate this, in particular for a player who had every right and probably every opportunity to say, hey, this isn't working for me here. I'm not playing as much as I thought I was going to. I'm not making the impact. I'm a McDonald's All-American. I need to be the man as a sophomore. I'm trying to get to the league. It's not happening for me here. I'm going to transfer. He could have gone the Quentin Grimes route, and nobody would have blamed him, particularly because Grimes got way more of an opportunity his freshman year at Kansas than Elmarco Jackson did. I understood why the comparison was what it was between Elmarco Jackson and Quentin Grimes, both guards, both McDonald's All-Americans. Grimes came in as a much more polished product than Jackson did, and he started all those games, whereas Jackson was pretty quickly bumped to the bench and played in a reserve role or sometimes not at all, where that never happened with Quentin Grimes. He was never busted back to that level of playing time. Grimes, though, did leave and put together a good college career at Houston and putting together a good NBA career right now. All's well that ends well for Quentin Grimes. But Elmarco Jackson certainly felt like a guy, and we talked about it. We talked about it a lot down the stretch of last season, feeling like, okay, yeah, this is a guy who's not going to come back. But why would he come back? What is there for him at Kansas? If he's not going to start, he's certainly going to recruit over him. What's left for him at KU? For him to decide, no, I'm going to stay, I'm going to improve, I'm going to work my tail off, and then for this to happen at this stage, it's such a bummer. Like, just, I know that's not hugely revelatory stuff, but you hurt for the kid.
You do. I guess the only positive you see is that maybe the timeline on the back end could be better for him to get on the court after the season next year.
It could.
And practice and get there, and he'll have a medical red shirt.
And Tyler points this out in the YouTube live chat as well. Better to happen now than during the season or halfway through. You can medical red shirt. You don't lose the year of eligibility. And yeah, it was going to be hard for him to play a bunch this year, given that the guard group is pretty settled. It's going to be Juan Harris and Rylan Griffin and Zeke Mayo is kind of your top three guards. And AJ Storr can play a little guard. But there were a lot of encouraging reports about Elmarco Jackson this offseason and a lot of hope that he could eventually get to his potential as a player and force his way into the rotation. Again, depth is going to matter a lot. You're going to need a lot of playable guys. You are not going to be able to survive the 20-game Big 12 schedule this year with 6 playable guys, which is what Kansas had last year. And you could argue there were moments last year where they didn't even have 6 playable guys.
Yeah.
So you need a real rotation. You'd like to have 2 5s you can roll. And there's no question Elmarco Jackson was going to be a part of that. We talked yesterday with Michael Swain about Kansas having a need or a spot to fill in the transfer portal and what need they could fill if they indeed go out and look for a player. And my thought has been a stretch big, because right now their starting four-man, KJ Adams, is not a shooter.
Exactly.
And their backup four-man is probably Zach Clements. And he's a little bit more of what you think about when you think about being a stretch big, but he's so unproven. He didn't play it all last year. I wondered if maybe that would be what KU would look to in a player, is find somebody who can be 6'8" to 6'10", can guard the 4 or the 5 in a pinch, and can space the floor, can step back and shoot in matchups that demand that. If they trust Zach Clements to be that guy, and Clements is another guy who, according to everything we've heard out of Kansas basketball camp and experts, that he has really improved as a player. Maybe he's going to be that guy. We asked Michael Swain that question directly. What do you think they're looking for? And he said probably a combo guard. Well, now I think the answer is definitely a combo guard. Like I think they have to go get another one, maybe a one-year guy. And there are players out there who would fit that bill, who could be one-year guys who don't necessarily have to start, but as Bill Self put it in his remarks a couple of days ago, would be players who have the desire to be part of a winning program. And that is the selling point right now. I think if you're Kansas in the transfer portal, we may not be able to offer you 30 minutes a game or 15 points a game, but we can offer you 15 minutes, we can offer you opportunity, and we can offer you a chance to go win a national championship. I feel like it's a pretty valuable thing to offer in the transfer portal.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think obviously tides have turned to where they're looking, but it's not, although it's late, I think you can still find a guy maybe. And you talked about yesterday for Kansas State, it wasn't last year at this time when Arthur Kaluma committed.
Yeah, like there's still plenty of meat on the transfer portal bone. And still plenty of opportunity for Bill Self in Kansas to fill Elmarco Jackson's roster spot. And best wishes, too, to Elmarco for a speedy recovery. That patella tendon injury, that is no joke. And certainly hope for a speedy recovery for him. That's going to do it for this hour of 580 Sports Talk. We'll come back. We'll talk a little Chiefs, and we'll talk about the best linebackers in the NFL. And how many of them do the Chiefs have? Coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. This is 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on a Wednesday afternoon. 3:06 is the time. 82 degrees, the temperature in the capital city of Kansas. I'm Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, and Trenton Kraxner comprise the rest of the crew today, with Brendan Wierzinski on vacation. He will be back on Monday. My vacation starts in an hour. My paternity leave vacation starts in 1 hour. My wife and I went to see the doctor this morning, and they told us that there is no sense in continuing the pregnancy any longer. Let's go ahead and grease the skids and put the wheels in motion to have a baby. So that's what we're going to go do. That's what I'm going to go do after I
really
finish
put
this
some
hour.
imagery out there with grease the skids.
I know. I wish I hadn't. There's not a real, there's not.
Yeah, there's not a real good way to say it.
It's not. Like, I've already made like one gross joke I wish I could have had back earlier this week, but no. So it's exciting and in equal measure terrifying. Our due date was yesterday, as everyone who has listened to the show is probably somewhat aware of. Hey, he's still in there. It's all good. Or they'll say, all right, let's set an appointment for you to go to the hospital and induce labor. You'll go do it at X day at X time. No, they told us, hey, let's go ahead and do that today. We'll let them know you're coming. All right. So, all moving very fast, but very excited. And in 1 hour, I'm checking out for a little bit. You'll hear from me when I decide to. I'll probably take 2 weeks. I'm thinking we got a pretty permissive. We've got great paternity leave. Shout out to Alpha Media Corporate. We have a good paternity leave policy, which I'm very appreciative of. And I'll probably take 2 weeks is what I'm thinking. So you'll hear from me in a couple of weeks. I'll be back. I won't have slept. You'll be able to see the bags under my eyes, even on camera. I'm sure if you watch on YouTube. But yeah, so I've got 1 more hour with you guys for the next little while. Then it's Spencer and Trenton the rest of the day and the rest of the week. Appreciate the congratulations from Joe and from Vance in the YouTube live chat. Invite you to join us in the YouTube live chat. You don't have to say nice things about me, but it never hurts. Join us in the YouTube live chat if you are watching on YouTube. YouTube.com 580 Sports Talk is the channel. We're up to 541 subscribers. Get subscribed while Brendan is gone. It's a great gag. Be in on the gag with us. Subscribe to the YouTube if you haven't already. You can also watch us on Facebook, WIBW News, and you can watch us on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk. Also appreciate the texts from the Top City Mail Supply text line. Text from 402. Congrats. Appreciate that very much. Text from 785 from the text line says his daughter will be 1 year old tomorrow. Well, congratulations to you. Happy 1 year birthday. That's an exciting milestone. And yeah, maybe my son and the listener's daughter will have the same birthday potentially. So
yeah,
I was rooting for, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not like big on the numerology, but I was kind of rooting for 6-3 or 6-4 as the birth date because that keeping score in baseball, right? 6-3, shortstop to first.
Yeah,
6-4 is how you start a double play, like pitcher's best friend. So I'm looking at that like 6-3, 6-4. That'll work for me. I could do that. 6-6, a little uncomfortably close to 3 6s, but we'll do it. If it's today, if it's tomorrow, whatever day, we're just excited to have it. Thank you to Mark as well for the kind words earlier on the YouTube live chat. Appreciate you guys being a part of the discussion and for saying such nice things. I appreciate it very much. Coming up later this hour, we're gonna play a round of One Gotta Go, and are we gonna have a K-State men's basketball season with some real expectations? We think we have a pretty good feel for who the best teams are, the top tier of teams in the Big 12. But could K-State crack that top tier? That's not just us saying it. Some national pundits who are thinking that K-State's going to have some juice with all of their transfer portal additions. We'll talk about it a little bit later on in the show. Rob Doster and Jeff Goodman of Field of 68 were talking about the Cats yesterday, and we'll let you hear a little bit of what they had to say. We're going to start this hour with a look at the linebacking group, not just for the Chiefs, but across the National Football League. Pro Football Focus has been ranking the positions or the players by positions. And they released earlier this week, I think it was, right, Spencer? Was it earlier this week? Was it Monday?
Let's see. There's been so many that I've been keeping track of. It was actually the end of last week.
End of last week, yeah. End of last week. This is Gordon McGinnis. Great name.
Yeah. Shout out to PFF because they're going through every position, and that's why I didn't know which state was which.
Yeah, they are. They're flying through them. But they released their linebacker rankings. Top 32 linebackers in the NFL. There are 3 teams that have two of their linebackers in the top 15 in the league. Yeah. 3 teams.
With more than one.
With more than one linebacker in the top 15. One of those teams is the New York Giants. The Giants have 2 ranked in the top 15. Bobby Okereke, who's a really good player, is the 10th ranked linebacker. He's the only one.
No, the Jets.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You got your New York teams confused. I have Jets written there.
It's 2 of the 3 New York teams, and I named the wrong one to start. Great job. It's almost like my head is elsewhere. The Jets. The Jets have 2 top 15 linebackers in the league. C.J. Mosley is 5th, and Quincy Williams is 12th. Really good players. If you remember the Chiefs-Jets game last year, Quincy Williams was really good in that game for the Jets. The Bills have 2 of the top, and should note, this is off-ball linebackers. This is not edge rushing outside linebackers. So like TJ Watt's not on this list, for example. These are off-ball linebackers. The Bills have 2 of the top 15 off-ball linebackers in the NFL. Is that right? No, it's the Bears. It's not the Bills. This one's your fault. You wrote Bills. You wrote Bills in the notes. This one's on you. This is E. Dupuis. E. Lucero and E. Dupuis. We're
Did I really mess that up?
Yeah, you did. It's okay. We had 2 Bears in the top 15. TJ Edwards is the 9th ranked linebacker in the league.
That's where I saw B, and in my head I said Bills because we were talking New York. I did the same thing you did, but opposite. My fault.
All good. Tremaine Edmonds, by the way, the 11th ranked linebacker in the league. So the Bears have 2 of the top 15 linebackers in the league, and the Jets have 2 of the best 15 linebackers in the league. And the Chiefs have 2 of the 15 best linebackers in the league.
You know why I did it?
Why did you do it?
Because Tremaine Edmonds used to be on the Bills.
Yes,
at one point.
We talked a little about Edmonds yesterday. He's the 3rd highest paid player.
Yes.
In this group. He is the 3rd highest paid linebacker. The 2 highest paid linebackers in the league are ranked 1 and 2 on this list. Fred Warner, number 1, no surprise.
Yeah, at the top of his game right now.
Number 2, Roquan Smith, also no surprise. Dre Greenlaw is intentionally left off the list because of his Achilles tendon injury. I think that's understandable. Greenlaw would probably be top 5, top 10 easy. And I'd put him in the top 5, but again, this is based on the PFF grades and rankings.
I will tell you, before we get into the Chiefs, if you go through all 32, there's another former Chief on here. Kind of surprising that he's listed on it after the way he was graded last season, even though we thought he was really good, but he knew he wasn't coming back. Also, it seems like a lot of the linebackers that they have in the 32, because they do it based on the number of teams, there's nowhere close to 32 teams represented in here because there's, I think, 3 or 4 more teams after the top 15 that have more than one player.
And that's interesting because you look at like outside of the top 15, the Jaguars have the 16th and 17th ranked linebackers in the league. So they got 2 in the top 32. We consider them to be a pretty good defense. The Commanders have 20th and 21st ranked players. They're both free agent acquisitions, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. I think that is a way low ranking for Frankie Louvu. I think for me, he'd be in my top 15 personally, at least. I think Louvu is really, really good. The Seahawks have 22nd and 24th. Like, the lower you get with the rankings, like the Patriots have 28th and 32nd, and that's not a great defense by any stretch. But the Jets, we think, have a pretty good defense, and they've got 2 top 12 linebackers. The Bears have a pretty good defense, 2 of the top 9 guys. The other teams represented, San Francisco, Baltimore, we consider those to be pretty good defenses. The rest, by the way, of the ranking, before we get to the Chiefs who are in this list, and I'm sure you can guess who they are, but the order might surprise you.
Yeah.
Demario Davis, 3rd best. Demario Davis is like 68 years old. I can't believe Demario Davis is still playing, not just playing football, but playing at a high level. He is one of the oldest great players in the league at a physically demanding position. Shout out to Demario Davis. Matt Milano of the Bills is 4th, which is wild because he only played 5 games last year. He was really good in those 5 games, but only played 5 games last year. To rank him 4th best linebacker in the league after an injury-shortened season surprises me. But again, this is a PFF ranking. They're kind of slaves to their numbers a little bit. C.J. Mosley, as we mentioned, is 5th. Levante David, another great old linebacker, 34 years old. That's old. That's football old. That's not real life old. That's football old. He's 6th. Patrick Queen of the Steelers, 7th. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is 8th. He plays for the Browns. T.J. Edwards of the Bears, 9th. Bobby Okereke of the Giants, 10th. Tremaine Edmonds of the Bears, 11th. Quincy Williams, 12th. Jermaine Pratt of the Bengals, 13th. And then you get to the 2 Chiefs. Nick Bolton, 14th best linebacker in the league. Here's what Gordon McGinnis says. Injuries hindered Bolton in 2023, and he wasn't the same player when he returned to the field for the final stretch of the season and playoffs. He was impressive in 2022, though, and they give him his grades from the 2022 season, which were high-level grades. An 81 on run defense, a 74 in coverage. Drew Tranquill, 15th best linebacker in the NFL. Tranquill's first season with the Chiefs was also his best yet in terms of PFF grade, coming in at 68.4 in 2023. An effective weapon against the pass, he earned a 67 PFF coverage grade and racked up 22 quarterback pressures. So, Tranquill obviously signed a 3-year deal in the offseason. And we were talking through this yesterday at this time on yesterday's show. If you missed any of it, check out the podcast page, 580wibw.com. Hover over the podcast tab. Click 580 Sports Talk for hour-by-hour breakdowns of every show. But as we were talking through this yesterday about the importance of Nick Bolton to the future of the Chiefs, given that Drew Tranquill is only 28 and he signed at a team-friendly 3 years, $19 million for the next 3 seasons, Bolton hits free agency this offseason. So do Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Are the Chiefs going to be willing to say goodbye to Nick Bolton in free agency? And for a long time, I have thought that that would not be the case, that they would value Bolton's intelligence and leadership, and that they would value the stability of having a long-term starter at middle linebacker, a long-term player wearing the green dot. And I still think that's possible. But I also think they've set themselves up to transition away from Bolton to Tranquill in the middle for the next 2 seasons after this coming year. If Bolton is too expensive, if they decide they'd rather give Trey Smith $20 million a year or adjacent as a top flight guard, and also give Creed Humphrey top of the market money as a center. So the argument for doing that is Tranquill, every bit the player that Bolton is. And when he was asked to deputize at middle linebacker last year, when Bolton had the dislocated wrist and didn't play, the Chiefs defense didn't miss a beat. It was only when Tranquill went out for a game that things got iffy. Yeah. That was the Green Bay game where that was the worst defensive performance for the Chiefs all season, was against the Packers. And some of that is you're on the road. Some of that is Packers offense is good. And Jordan Love was out of his mind that night. Jordan Love had an out-of-body experience playing quarterback that night. But it mattered that they didn't have Bolton or Tranquill on the field. You saw no step back from Bolton to Tranquill, but the step back from Tranquill to, I think it was Jack Cochran, was substantial, as you would expect. So that's the argument for saying, I don't know if we're going to prioritize Nick Bolton. Maybe we've got a guy who can be every bit the player Bolton is, and we just plug him in the middle linebacker spot for his age 29 and 30 seasons. And as this list proves, Demario Davis, high on the list. He's in his 30s. Levante David's 34. Bobby Wagner is in his 30s, about to turn 34. He's on this list. You can age gracefully at linebacker in a way that maybe you can't age so gracefully at some other positions. So,
I mean, look, you say age gracefully, and that goes to the point of people that are on this list. Bobby Wagner, what's the guy? Demario Davis.
Right. We're just talking about those guys. Yeah.
Those are guys that are in the top echelon of the league in linebackers.
Yeah, they're not just holding their own. These are still top flight guys at the position.
In their mid to late 30s.
Yeah. So maybe they figure we'll be all right with Tranquil at age 29 and age 30. I think that's right. Tranquil's 28. His birthday's in August. So he'll play this next season at age 29.
Yeah.
So 30 and 31. His age 30 and 31 seasons. We'll be okay with that at middle linebacker if we decide not to extend Nick Bolton and let him walk in.
Nick Bolton is younger, though.
He is.
By like five years?
I don't know how old Nick Bolton is. Not off the top of my head.
Was 20 when he got drafted, according to Spot Track, because it says age at signing 20.
He turned 24 in March.
Yeah.
So yeah, he will be 24 when he hits free 25, I guess, technically speaking. His age 25 season will be his
6 years younger than Tranquil.
It is.
That's still time to grow into what he could be.
And that's not nothing. Like,
yeah,
that's certainly part of the equation. The other argument in favor of keeping Bolton and Tranquil together. In Tranquil's little write-up, a little blurb here in this article, they talk about his coverage ability and his quarterback pressures. Yeah, 67 coverage grade, 22 quarterback pressures. Drew Tranquil can do more than Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton is kind of a plug and play, not quite like an old school middle linebacker, but as close as you get, I think, in the league anymore. Like, you don't have, it's a different league now, and you don't have the middle linebacker like Brian Urlacher or who else? The great middle linebackers of the 90s and the 2000s. Like, those guys aren't around the way they used to be. You don't have as many of those guys anymore. And the guys, they're certainly not the stars. Like Zach Thomas, another guy who was like that.
London Fletcher
is a good example. Greg Lloyd for the Steelers. Those steady middle linebackers. Luke Kuechly, even a guy like Luke Kuechly. There are not a lot of him running around anymore. This is traditional. We're going to play a 4-3, and the middle of our linebacker core is the guy. He's the sheriff. He's the star of the unit. With defenses more and more playing base nickel sets or playing three safeties, you don't have those middle linebacker stars. If there are stars at linebacker, it's the outside linebacker. Like, texter asked about Lawrence Taylor from the Tufts Emails Play text line. He was much more of an edge, much more of an outside pass rusher. And that's where, you see guys like TJ Watt today. Like, the highest paid linebackers in the league are all the edge guys. It's the off-ball linebacker. We don't even call it middle linebacker anymore. We call it off-ball linebacker. But Nick Bolton is as close to that kind of throwback middle linebacker as you see in the league anymore. Bobby Wagner's still very much that kind of player. And Roquan Smith is that kind of linebacker, I think. Fred Warner, though, versatile. You think about versatility with those middle linebackers. Lofa Tatupu, another one. He was one of my favorites. I still have a Lofa Tatupu jersey. It's in great shape. I should wear it someday. One of my favorite players. Undersized. Like, you can't be like the undersized linebacker anymore. Teams are going to put you in conflict if you're not big enough. They're just going to put you in coverage against tight ends and just wear you out. So you have to be versatile, I think, at the linebacker spot. And Drew Tranquil's versatility might be really valuable next to a player like Bolton, who is a straightforward middle linebacker, downhill player, thumper against the run, not going to kill you in coverage, but also that's not his expertise. You don't have to ask Bolton to do as much of that when you're playing alongside a linebacker like Drew Tranquil. So it's very possible the Chiefs look at both of those players as complementary pieces for this year and the next two, and don't view Tranquil as the plug-and-play replacement. Well, we're going to move him into Bolton's role, and we'll find a veteran, or we'll find somebody in the draft that we can plug in, along with Leo Chanel, who's going to be very much in the mix at linebacker this year and moving forward. And that's going to be our linebacker room. So, once again, this is what good front offices do. You're never pigeonholed into anything if you're a good front office. You're never in a spot where, well, gosh, we have to pay this guy. We have to pay this player. Otherwise, our roster doesn't make sense. This is an indispensable piece. We have to do this because we don't have a replacement that we're developing, or we can't go get a player who fills this role, or we are so married to one scheme that this player is just the perfect scheme fit. We have to keep them in town. They're not pigeonholed into doing any one thing at a time. Their flexibility gives them the opportunity to evaluate at the end of the season. Okay, can we keep Nick Bolton? If we can make something work, he comes back on Tremaine Edmonds money, $18 million a year. Okay, great. We've got our linebacking core set for the next 2 seasons with him and Tranquil.
Yeah.
We can't afford Nick Bolton. We decide, okay, maybe it's a better option for the Chiefs long-term to keep the offensive line together. That's where we're going to build our core from. This interior line of Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, this is going to be who we prioritize and pay from that draft class. Nick Bolton, thanks for the memories. The rings last forever. But we're going to move Tranquil and Chanel up a spot on our depth chart and develop the next one of you.
Yes.
We'll develop the next Nick Bolton.
So tease, my one's got to go has to do with the defenders that are coming up to be free agents in 2026.
Looking forward to that very much.
But when I was going through this PFF grades here, so 20 teams were represented of the 32 that they rank. So 12 teams missed out on having at least one linebacker in the top 32. 10 teams have multiple players. Those teams: Saints, Jets, Bears, Bengals, Chiefs, Jags, Pats, Commanders, Seahawks. And the Patriots, this probably doesn't shock you considering who their new head coach is.
Right.
They have 3 in the top 32.
They're the only one with 3.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought Juwan Bentley at 32, Sione Takitaki at 28. Takitaki was a free agent addition, wasn't he?
And then Jelani Tavai.
Jelani Tavai. Yeah.
Tavai is 18th.
Yeah, he had his best season as a pro last year.
I just thought that was interesting how they ranked them and that they have 3. Then you think, oh, who's their new head coach?
Former linebacker.
A former linebacker.
No, makes a lot of sense that he would build his defense from linebacker out.
Yeah.
Speaking of having 3 guys on the list, the Chiefs would have 3 guys on the list if they'd re-sign Willie Gay, because Willie Gay makes the list. He's at number 31 on this list. The blurb about him: Gay is coming off the lowest graded season of his career, but will now play in the NFC South. That's funny how that's written.
Well, maybe he wouldn't have been on it if he wasn't going to play for the Saints.
Yeah, or maybe they think it will be easier for him to bounce back because he's been playing against bums because the NFC South is trash.
Yeah, it has to play the Panthers twice a year.
He posted a 65-plus PFF grade in all 3 of his previous seasons, so he can still be a top 32 linebacker in the NFL. I don't think the Chiefs thought Willie Gay was not a good player. I don't think they let him go because they didn't think he was going to be good.
I just think it's a numbers game.
Yeah, like we can do Tranquil, and Chanel's on a rookie deal and Bolton's on a rookie deal, and Willie Gay, thanks for the memories, thanks for the rings. Yeah. Like that was an easy calculation for them to make. I don't think they're going to miss Willie Gay, even though I do think he is at his best a top 32 linebacker in the league. Like, not the highest bar to clear, but I do think he is that at his best. And wish him luck in New Orleans. That's been a good landing spot for former Chiefs, right? Tyrann Mathieu ended up there. Colin Saunders is there. Now Willie Gay is there. Dan Sorensen ended up there, old Dirty Dan. So that is weird. Why are the Saints signing so many ex-Chiefs? It's just such a strange thing.
Yeah.
God, what a weird organization. Anyhow, we're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. Come back, play around, and one got to go here on 580 WIBW. All of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver. Use your rideshare app or plan ahead for a sober ride home. Time for a round of One Gotta Go. And Spencer, I believe you said you had one that was related to our previous topic of conversation. So I'm going to let you start. What do you got?
Yes. So my one gotta go today. I've been thinking about it for the last couple days, really for the last week. We've been talking a lot about the Chiefs defense, and specifically yesterday when we talked about, I guess, overall who would be that next group of core Chiefs. For me, I think about defensive guys because you're going to sign less defensive guys because the money that they're going to require compared to who you have on offense with Patrick Mahomes and your core offensive line and this, that, and the other. But 2026 free agents, you got to let one of them hit free agency.
Okay.
Mike Dana, George Karlaftis, Drew Tranquill, or Trent McDuffie.
Oh, man. I think Dan is a pretty easy answer there, to be honest with you. McDuffie, to me, is going to be a guy who plays at a really high level for a really long time. I think that.
But is he going to be a guy like Snead that's going to require a lot of money that the Chiefs aren't going to be able to pay?
Might be worth it. Like, it's going to depend on what happens to the cornerback market in the next couple of years. But if he's an all-pro in year 2, like, that is what the Chiefs have always done. They have always taken care of the elite talent. Like, they prioritize making sure that if they've got an all-pro player, they want to make sure they keep that player. And if that's what Trent McDuffie is for the next 2 years, like L'Jarius Sneed was an all-pro caliber player this last year. That was the first time he'd been that kind of player. If Trent McDuffie can do that 2 more times, and that's just what he's going to be, he's going to be among the top 3 corners in the league the rest of his career. Chiefs are going to do whatever they can to keep him. Edge rushers, you got to prioritize. So I think Karlaftis, you try and get something done with him. Dana, I like him a lot, but he's the cheapest of those 4 guys and might be the easiest to let walk as a result. But no, good question. Trent, what say you on that one? Who if you've got to let one of those 4 go, who would it be?
I agree with Mike Dana, just because I think he's probably going to be the oldest guy out of that group. Him and Tranquill might be close in age on that, but I think the Chiefs are going to invest more in the defensive line as Chris Jones himself gets older. So I think I could see them drafting some like replacements for a guy that can be versatile like Mike Dana. And like you said, with Nick Bolton, you never know. Tranquill could get a big time deal to stay here for the long term at some point if the Chiefs do let go of Nick Bolton. So I think Mike Dana would be the choice out of this one.
What was yours, Spencer?
I, for lack of all sounding the same, I was just going to say McDuffie because I think he's going to require a lot more money.
So much money that he'd be the hardest to get a deal done with.
Yes, if he plays to the level
argument. Yeah.
If he plays to the level that everyone's talking that he's going to play to and how versatile he'll be, and he just saw his teammate go through this and saw what Snead was able to do somewhere else. So
no, I see what you're saying.
I and the Chiefs are kind of reluctant, maybe would be the word, to pay defensive backs.
We did just see them trade L'Jarius Sneed instead of paying him. So maybe that's precedent.
They draft so well.
Yeah, maybe that's precedent. Maybe it really is. For my one gotta go today, the NBA Finals start tomorrow. The Stanley Cup Final begins on Saturday. There are 4 host cities for the championship rounds in basketball and hockey. I'm going to give you a chance to see a game in any one of these 4 cities. So it's kind of a reverse one gotta go. It's one you gotta go to, I suppose. An NBA Finals game in Boston, an NBA Finals game in Dallas, a Stanley Cup Final game in Miami, or a Stanley Cup Final game in Edmonton. If you could only go to one, where are you going, Spencer?
That's a hard one. I think the atmosphere, I think, there's only one place I want to go for an atmosphere like that, and that's Boston at the Garden.
The Garden for the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're
all those banners, great basketball history in that city.
Yeah, look, you're in Florida, you're in Miami, Miami, not necessarily
Miami-ish. To be fair,
yeah,
the arena's
Sunrise, right?
Like, the arena's north of like Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. It's in Sunrise.
Yeah, you're there. You're not in Miami. Also, why are we watching hockey in June in Florida? And Edmonton, I don't know. What else is in Edmonton? If it was for the atmosphere standpoint, it would be Boston. If it would be for the adventuring to a new place that I'll probably never go to again, it'd be Edmonton.
Okay. Trenton, what would your choice be?
I've only been to one hockey game in my entire life, and I think it was like a semi-pro game in Topeka. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, being at a hockey game. And it was like a semi-pro or something like that. I think going up to Edmonton, because you're getting the added bonus of going to a different country.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't won, since like 90, we said last week.
Yeah.
I think it'd be an electric atmosphere. Like I said, I'm not really big into hockey, but to go to a different country, I think that'd be really cool.
Trenton, you are thinking the same way I am thinking. If you saw the end of Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals in the NHL, that building was rocking. That building is going to be electric for a Stanley Cup final game. By far, there will be no better atmosphere in the championship rounds of either sport than what they're going to have going on at the arena in Edmonton, whose name I definitely know and am not having to Google.
Scotiabank? Is that it? No.
Scotiabank?
Is that it?
I don't think so. What? Rogers Place. Everything is named after Rogers. I should have just known. Yes, Rogers.
There is a
Place.
Scotiabank Arena in Canada. I don't know which team it is. It might be the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, you might be right. Yes, the Rogers Place used to be. Where did the Oilers used to play? Northlands Coliseum in the old days, but no, they play at Rogers Place. That would be my choice. With Boston for basketball being a close second. No disrespect to Dallas or Miami, great crowds, great fans, but man, that crowd in Edmonton is going to be electric. For those games. Trent, do you have one got to go for us?
I do, and we're going to flip to the baseball diamond. So these are the 4 teams in the American League wild card race right now that are behind the Twins. In this order, games back right now: Tigers, Red Sox, Rays, Rangers. If you had to pick one of those 4 teams in September that's not going to be close to a wild card spot, out of those 4 teams, who's going to fade the rest of the way? The Rangers, the Red Sox, the Rays, or the Tigers?
That's a tough one.
I'll say Tigers.
I'm going to go. I think that Boston, by virtue of being in a tougher division, and I think they're going to wind up a little short on pitching over the long haul with some of the injuries they've had. It's not a great offense, I don't think. They've dealt with a lot of injuries already. I think Boston probably fades to that sort of barely sub 500. It's kind of who they've been the last couple of years, just sort of a 78 to 80 win baseball team. So I would say them. I think Detroit's got enough starting pitching to hang in. I think Tampa Bay will get healthy in the second half, and I think Texas will get healthy in the second half. What about you, Spencer?
I said, who did I just lost track. Lost train of thought.
You said Detroit?
The Detroit, I just don't think they have enough. I think the Rangers are going to get some pitching help.
Yes.
Because I just saw
Max
Scherzer's throwing a bullpen. And who else is on it? Is it
DeGrom and John Gray?
Like they're by the time September hits, they're gonna be pitching on all cylinders.
I think you're right. What's your choice? Who do you think is not going to hang in, Trenton?
I got the Tampa Bay Rays. I was not very impressed with their roster makeup when the Royals played down there a couple weeks ago. I thought they were really lacking some of the talent. Some of their stars, like Rosarena and Yandy Diaz, have really been had a rough year.
Yeah, God, Randy's not hitting a lick.
Yeah, and I think the Rays are going to fade out of that. If I had to pick another team, I think it's the Tigers. I'm not impressed overly with the Tigers either. I'd say the Tigers are Rays, but more likely the Rays are going to fade out because the same argument made about the Red Sox. They are in a tougher division. I'm just not impressed with the overall roster makeup of the Tampa Bay Rays.
That's one got to go. We're going to take a break. When we come back, some breaking KU basketball news and a little bit of national love for the K-State Wildcats and the roster Jerome Tang's putting together. That's next up on 580 Sports Talk. Alpha Media is proud to partner with the Kansas Drive to Zero Coalition and encourages you to join Kansas fans with a plan. Always have a designated driver or other sober ride to and from your destination. Breaking KU men's basketball news, and if you're a subscriber to Fog.net, 24/7 Sports Network, our good pal Michael Swain, you'd have been on this earlier this afternoon, but it is official now per the players' Instagram. KU's got their combo guard, and they filled their roster spot. Shaquille Moore, former Mississippi State guard, has committed to KU. 6'1" senior, originally from Greensboro, North Carolina. Average 8 points, 2 boards, 2 assists per game this past season. 36% three-point shooter. Spent his first season at North Carolina State, played the last 3 years at Mississippi State, has 1 year of eligibility remaining, and he'll be using it at KU. And that is just about, I think, a best-case scenario addition to this roster, a player who you can tell by the numbers, doesn't need to score, doesn't need the ball in his hands, doesn't need to play 35 minutes, but has not been on programs that have made deep NCAA tournament runs and maybe wants the opportunity to win a national championship in his final year. And now with the season-ending injury to Elmarco Jackson, there's a vacancy in the guard rotation, and Shaquille Moore, to me, feels like the exact right kind of guy to go and fill that.
You love to see it being attacked so early and so soon, and not, like I just said, the longer you wait, you kind of get in doubt, and now you already got somebody within 24 hours of it happening, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, within 24 hours of the injury happening, you've got a guy to replace him. And that's what happens when you're Kansas Hoops and you can attract guys that are like, hey, maybe I can find myself a roster spot here and I'll have a better look to have playing time, because a guy that was going to get some playing time, unfortunately, is injured.
So Shaquille Moore, that is, by the way, not Shaquille as in Shaquille O'Neal. That is spelled differently. Shakeel Moore, committing to Kansas. And that fills up Kansas's roster. They're out of scholarships, so they're done in the portal. They can't go get another guy because Elmarco Jackson is injured. They can't, put him on the 60-day injured list and add to their 40-man roster. Not how it works. So KU's full. KU's done in the transfer portal. K-State is not done in the transfer portal. They have one more roster spot they can fill, but they made a big addition, literally and figuratively, yesterday with the commitment of former Kentucky center Ugonna Onyenso. The 7-footer has 2 years of eligibility remaining, was one of the top shot blockers in the entire country last year. The roster is really taking shape nicely for Jerome Tang and the Wildcats, and we are not the only ones noticing. Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster were doing their Field of 68 podcast yesterday and spent some time, extended time, talking about the Wildcats. This isn't the full clip, but this is kind of the best of.
Yeah, I do have some questions about how some of these names are said, because I'm hearing different ones from different people, how names that are on Kansas State's roster are pronounced.
Okay, well,
you'll hear it.
Yeah, that's a Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster problem. But anyway, here are those two from the Field of 68 talking about the Wildcats.
Look at what Tang did a couple of years ago in his first year in Manhattan. We were there when they played Kansas, and it was like, listen, nobody expected a whole lot from them. They rolled the dice, and I think, again, they did it late here, which is hard to do. Right. They really were able to kind of get their front court late, which I didn't think they'd be able to do, because, supply and demand says you wait on something like this, you're going to have to outbid some big boys. And again, not like Onyenso. Listen, he put his name in for the draft and all of us shook our head. We're like, what the hell are you doing? Go back to school. So I'm glad he made the right decision here. But again, I think the trio of Okorafor, Onyenso, and Bayfall, like, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And if that's you, I don't know how much scoring you're going to get from Onyenso or Bayfall, but if they can just be an elite shot blocker and rebounder if you're Onyenso, and put it together consistently, that's my biggest thing with him, obviously, this past year. But I will say this, I don't think Cal ever went with anybody consistently at Kentucky. He was trying Bradshaw. He was obviously trying Onyenso. He was trying Big Z. He didn't ever ride somebody long enough, whether one of those three guys, to feel like, they could play through their mistakes.
Yeah, and look, Ugonna Enyenso has a very specific skill set, right? He is a guy that is going to be a 5-man that's going to be able to defend the rim, and that's kind of what he is right now. He's going to be a guy offensively where he sets screens, he rolls to the basket, you throw the ball up to the top of the square, and you let him go get it. And be a spacer that way. So he's not someone that you're expecting to be a pick and pop. He's not someone that you're expecting to throw the ball into and run offense through him. He kind of is what he is. And as long as you're able to embrace that and play through it, then I think that you're going to be just fine. And I think what we've seen with Jerome Tang is he understands how to be able to take advantage of what players have in a specific skill set if they're usable. So yeah, look, I think it's a good addition. I think he immediately makes him better. He particularly makes him better on the defensive end of the floor.
So that last voice was Rob Doster, the person that you heard pronounce Enyenso's name like 4 different ways in a 1-minute clip. That was Jeff Goodman.
Yeah, I was referring to I listened to that 6.5-minute clip, and between Fall, Enyenso, and who am I just forgetting?
They called him a core.
Yes, I was just sitting there
wrong.
like, who are they talking about? And then it got me like, is it Bayfall or Bayfall?
It's Baye. We know that.
But then I went and looked on, I think, who came from Arkansas?
That was Fall.
Yeah, I went and looked and see if they had a pronunciation guide, and I couldn't find one.
So the longer clip from the Field of 68, which you can find on their Twitter account at the Field of 68, they're on YouTube as well. They believe, those two, by any name or any pronunciation, that the Wildcats are legitimate Big 12 title contenders. This is what Doster said in his on his own Twitter account. Kansas State is going to be a very real problem this season. Shooters, length and athleticism in the lane, a stud point guard. Love what Tang's put together.
Yeah, one thing. So I had 2 clips that I was deciding between that gave you a good bit of info. Is Rob Doster, right?
Yes.
He said this is a team that has a high floor or a high ceiling, but also a low floor.
Yeah, and I think the floor comes from, one, there's still some guys that don't have a ton of experience, and 2, you got to make it all fit together. But again, if you were going to trust a coach, any coach, to make it fit with a big transfer portal class, wouldn't it be the coach that took a almost entirely transfer portal built team to an Elite 8 just 2 years ago? I have trust that Jerome Tang is going to make this work from a chemistry standpoint. And I think that the pieces fit together really well too. That you're only going to be asking the players that are on this roster to do the things they're good at. Like last year, they asked Tyler Perry to do too much. They had to. They didn't have a choice. They were asking for more from Will McNair than they realistically could get. Even at times, they're asking more from Cam Carter than he was capable of. This year, they're going to be asking exactly what is appropriate from Doug McDaniel, run the show. Brendan Housen, knock down your threes. Max Jones, knock down your threes. Ugonna Enyenso, block shots and rebound. Achor, be a roll man in the pick and roll. They're not going to ask too much from these guys. And I think that is a recipe for success. I think saying that they're conference championship contenders is probably a stretch. I think that KU and Houston and Iowa State still have rosters that are going to be ahead of K-State entering the year. I think Baylor probably does too. They'll figure out defense.
And again, that was in another clip too that it'd be like half the thing of
it's a long podcast and we think you should check it out.
Yes. Yeah. But basically they're a team that I believe Rob said this, they could be a team that finishes Big 12 play a few games over 500 in Big 12 play, but steal some wins at home against teams they shouldn't, but also lose games on the road against teams they should beat.
And that feels about right. But that's a much better, like we did last week. You weren't around for it, but I was discussing the some early power rankings, and somebody from 24/7 had K-State 10th out of 16 teams. And I thought, I think they're probably closer to 6th than they are to 16th. But yeah, they feel pretty ensconced in that second tier. I think not only are they more in that second tier of Big 12 teams, but I think they've shoved their way closer to be in that conversation with teams like Cincinnati and teams like Texas Tech that a lot of people are considering dark horse contenders in the Big 12. I think now K-State is in that category instead of being in the category of, that's probably a middle of the pack Big 12 team. They've improved their roster, I think, that much. And it all makes sense. It all is cohesive. That is, I think, the best part of it. We got one more hour of 580 Sports Talk to come your way today. In the final hour of the show, before we give way to the Royals Baseball Network, We'll have our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll play What Is Wrong With You. Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, will join us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour as well. I will not. My wife and I are going to go have a baby. So we're going to be gone for a little while. I'm going to be gone for a little while. Spencer and Trenton have you the rest of today. They have you the rest of the week. Brandon will be back on Monday. I'll be gone for a while. I want to thank everybody again for the kind words and well wishes. I will talk to you when I talk to you. I will do so as a father. I'm extremely excited. Until then, coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, this is 580 Sports Talk. We'll be back with the 4 o'clock hour, the final hour of the show today, right after this.
Let's get it. 4 o'clock hour here on 580 Sports Talk. And what was about 20 minutes ago thought to be the final hour of today's edition of 580 Sports Talk, due to the Royals up in Cleveland taking on the Guardians for game 2. We now have 2 more hours because the game, it is storming in Cleveland, and they're not going to get the game in tonight, but they're also not going to play it tomorrow. Trenton, you got the latest from Joel Goldberg, right?
Yeah, when he put out the lineups on Twitter today, he said, is there a window to get the game in? Because there was a lot of rain in the forecast up in Cleveland. Unfortunately, I think some of the storms that might be heading north from what we got a couple days ago, heading through Ohio right now, and they'll be playing a split doubleheader on August 26th when the Royals return to Cleveland. For the next time, they'll play that makeup game at 1:10, and then they already had a regularly scheduled game at 6:40 or 5:40 that night for Central Time. So they'll play a doubleheader on that day when they go back up there. So just one game in the afternoon tomorrow. So maybe the Royals can go get a split.
Yeah, not the day we thought the Royals were going to have, but maybe it's a little more to get some confidence for Bobby Witt Jr. after the error last night. Just want to remind everybody, we're coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Dan is now out on baby watch, taking his maternity leave. So it's a youngest in charge movement. Myself, Spencer, joined by our intern, Trenton Craxton, who you'll get to hear a lot more over the next couple of days, as it'll just be us here in the 2-man studio here at the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. And we're just going to keep things as planned for this hour and then kind of figure things out next hour. I got some audio, the press conference audio yesterday from Pete Hughes, Kansas State head baseball coach, and some players as they spoke to the media yesterday before departing for Charlottesville, Virginia, with their super regional starting tomorrow night. So don't usually get a chance to play baseball or college baseball audio on the show, but we got time today, so let's do it. But let's get into headlines today. We'll start things off kind of right where we ended last hour for those that missed it. We talked about Marco Jackson being out for the rest of the year, or excuse me, the whole next season, earlier in the show after an injury to his patella tendon in a scrimmage yesterday, as they kind of start their off-season activities for the new guys that are coming in this year that have already enrolled in the school. And they didn't waste much time, because less than 24 hours after that injury happened, they've already got their replacement in the transfer portal. Mississippi State transfer Shaquille Moore. Moore joins the Jayhawks for his 5th and final season of collegiate eligibility. He began his career at NC State, where he played the 2020-2021 season before going to Mississippi State and playing 3 years for the Bulldogs. The 6'1" guard from Greensboro, North Carolina, averaged 7.9 points per game while shooting 46.8% from the field as a senior last season. And it's official because he announced his commitment via Instagram. That backcourt is going to be interesting. We thought, a speed guy in Marco Jackson, but now it will be Shaquille Moore splitting some time in the backcourt with DeJuan Harris, San Diego State transfer Zeke Mayo, Alabama transfer Rylan Griffin, and quick work by the Kansas staff to replace a core member of the team that was actually ascending. He'll get a medical red shirt and come back next year as a red shirt sophomore. But we'll get the resident Kansas fan and Kansas student Trenton's little thoughts on this transfer and what they were able to do. And maybe there is also another place where they wanted to go, but they've used their final scholarship spot.
Yeah, I think there's probably a guy that Bill and them had on the radar, I would guess, as one of their targets. And, maybe he was the odd guy out, where he was like the last guy on the line of guys they wanted. Like, they got Rylan Griffin and all that. And maybe next was Shaquille Moore, but we don't really have a spot. We have one spot, but do we need a combo guard? Or are we going to try and get a stretch big? Obviously, the unfortunate injury to Marco Jackson, who showed flashes throughout the last year, especially with his athleticism. It took the unfortunate injury, and I guarantee you Bill Self had Shaquille Moore on speed dial to pick it up and said, you know what, you're going to take our last roster spot, because like you said, Jackson still counts against the scholarship limit for KU, despite probably getting a medical red shirt. So KU could take their last scholarship penalty this year that they got from the NCAA, and then you don't have to worry about it next year. You can go even more full bore. I think that's the way that KU is going to go. But interesting fact about Shaquille Moore is he's 2 years ago as a junior, he was on the watch list for National Defensive Player of the Year. So they got a guy that can guard, and that's what Bill Self loves.
Yeah, and maybe they wanted to use this extra spot somewhere else, particularly a different part of the team, maybe a forward, a taller guy, but they're not going to do that this year, and they're going to go with Shaquille Moore transferring in from Mississippi State after the unfortunate injury to Elmarco Jackson. First headline for you, Trenton.
We'll stay with the University of Kansas. This one goes to the baseball diamond, though. The Big 12 Freshman of the Year, Dominique Vagley, who was a pitcher, got invited to U.S. Baseball Collegiate National Team Training Camp. And I didn't even know this. He was selected in the 2023 MLB draft by the Arizona Diamondbacks, but he chose to go and attend the University of Kansas. He went 7-2 this year with a 3.89 ERA and 81 innings pitched. He recorded 80 strikeouts compared to only 29 walks on the season. He was a all Big 12 second team honoree and selected to the Big 12 all freshman team, and he was the freshman of the year in the conference. Kansas has been the home to the Big 12 freshman year in back-to-back seasons. Cody Shojanaga, an infielder, was the Big 12 co-freshman of the year last year, and now Vagley this year. KU had never won a Big 12 freshman of the year award prior to Shojanaga last year, and Shojanaga was also invited to the U.S. Baseball Collegiate National Team Training Camp a year ago. Vagley is one of 56 players who earned an invite, and players will play in the Stars versus Stripes inter-squad series at the U.S. Baseball National Training Complex in Cary, North Carolina on June 26th and 27th. The official final roster will be announced on June 29th. So Dominique Vagley, the number 2 pitcher in the starting rotation for the Kansas Jayhawks this year, making it big on the national stage.
And there you go. Let's continue here on the headlines as we whip around some latest headlines. This is kind of going back to a story, not really a story, but renderings that we saw about a month ago come out on the Kansas side of things as the ever-changing landscape for stadiums on the Missouri side changes with a vote that got voted down in Jackson County for the tax that they were going to implement. Now the Kansas side is starting to put forth some more effort than we initially saw right after, which is a good thing because that means they've thought about it a little bit. But it was about a month ago we saw what a stadium could look like if it was going to be up there in the area around the racetrack. But yesterday, I guess it happened yesterday. A new website is making a push to get the Chiefs over the Kansas border. Scoop and Score Inc. has launched a website featuring a petition for Kansans to sign. The petition encourages legislators to back the professional sports franchise Star Bond. This initiative aims to make the Sunflower State a more appealing destination for the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. The site also features renderings by a KC-based Manica depicting a new Chiefs stadium could look like in Kansas. It includes facts, myths, and facts section about the Star Bond initiative. According to the Secretary of State's office, Frieden and Forbes law firm in Topeka, Kansas, has created Scoop and Score website Inc. last month. Timothy Resner is a partner at the firm, and his wife, Paige, was the chief of staff to former Kansas House Speaker Ronald Reichman. Reichman is an outspoken supporter for bringing the Chiefs to Kansas, and Paige is also an incorporator of Scoops and Score, Inc., according to the Secretary of State's office. This is big because the topic could be brought up by lawmakers once they convene the governor's special session here in 13 days on June 18th. I don't think we're really close to getting a stadium for the Chiefs in Kansas, Trenton, but this is something.
Oh, yeah. I don't foresee the Chiefs coming over and playing in Overland Park or North Kansas City. Maybe the Royals, but I think the Chiefs have a good thing going on out at Arrowhead right now. Maybe the Royals, but I don't think the state could swing the Chiefs away from the state of Missouri, especially how much they're providing for the state and recognition and income and all that. Maybe the Royals, though, even though they're on the rise, I can see maybe getting one, but I don't think they get both teams over here into the Sunflower State, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the Royals are the push. They've already got that ballpark that they've laid their eyes on putting down near T-Mobile Center, the old Sprint Center, down in downtown Kansas City, which I personally think, as someone that has attended games at a stadium in the middle of nowhere, comparatively to the city, not necessarily, it's, it's pretty close to the city, but then in a downtown aspect, the downtown aspect just changes completely. And one of the big pushbacks for it was the fact that they're going to be purchasing all this land and putting businesses out of business. Essentially, that's one of the big pushbacks that Sherman's gotten during this time. But if you can make it such a way to where businesses come back, like from personal experience, going to a Washington Nationals game in 2012 and 2013 was like you were out in the middle of nowhere. And I just went to one 2 weeks ago, and it is the place to be in Washington, D.C., the Navy Yard district. So if you're a team and you can make that the place to be in a downtown, I think that's the best for both worlds, because you're in a downtown and you're where everyone is. Yeah, there's going to be some pushbacks about businesses having to move and stuff, but that's the latest what we have right now on the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, the Kansas's efforts to push the Chiefs over to here. Next headline for you, Trenton.
Ex-NBA player Chase Budinger qualifies for the Paris Olympics in beach volleyball.
Wow.
See if I can get his partner's name pulled up too. Miles Evans. They secured one of the final spots on the U.S. Olympic beach volleyball roster, and they're going to be playing in Paris this summer. And I love watching beach volleyball. I think that's one of my favorite things to watch during the Summer Olympics. But Budinger went to the University of Arizona, and then he played for the Rockets from 2012 to 2015, the Timberwolves 2015 and 2016. Then he was with the Pacers and Suns during that 2016 season. He played overseas for a year after that. But I think it's pretty cool that ex-NBA guy is able to qualify in beach volleyball at an Olympic level. I think that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not the first time we've seen an ex-NBA player trying to make a second career in a different sport. Why am I forgetting his name? He's at North Carolina A&T playing golf.
J.R. Smith, right?
J.R. Smith,
yes.
That's who it was. I couldn't remember who it was, but that's what I initially thought of, was like, oh yeah, well, he's going to go on and have a second career, just like J.R. Smith did. That is interesting, to go play beach volleyball as an Olympian. That's something new I have not heard. Let's keep things going here on headlines. The college football playoff, they have announced their dates and kickoff times and broadcast information for the 2024-2025 playoff season, which is the first with the newly expanded 12-team format. It all gets going on Friday, December 20th. These games, again, we mentioned a couple weeks ago that I believe it was last week that ESPN and ABC are sharing the rights with TNT Sports, and there'll be two of those first round games. One game's going to be on Friday. That's be 7 p.m. Central on ABC, ESPN on both. So you'll be able to catch it on both. December 21st, Saturday, a noon kickoff on TNT Sports, the 4 p.m. kickoff that day as well in the first round on TNT Sports. And you wrap it up at, that's an 11 a.m. Central, kickoff. And then you wrap things up 7 p.m. on ABC, ESPN for the first round. And then you get the bowl names, which those change every year, but there's going to be more this year that are going to be college football playoff bowls, just because of the way the format has changed. New Year's Eve, you have 6:30 ESPN, you have the Fiesta Bowl, the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, and then you have your New Year's games, 12 p.m. on ESPN, you'll have the Peach Bowl, 4 p.m. on ESPN, you'll have the Rose Bowl, and then the Sugar Bowl will be at 7:45. All those on ESPN. The playoff semifinals will be Thursday, January 9th, and Friday, January 10th. Both those 6:30 p.m.s. The Orange Bowl will be Thursday, the 9th at 6:30 on ESPN, and Fridays will be the Cotton Bowl at 6:30 on ESPN. And then the national championship date set for Monday, May 20th. It says 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Those times are never accurate. They never start till like Eastern time, 8:15. So it'll be a 6:30 is what it says for Central Time. But while announcing the schedule, I saw a lot on Twitter. I don't know if you saw any of this. The amount of football games that will go on between December 20th and I guess the next month with the playoffs for college football's national championship to include NFL. Trenton, have you seen all the games?
I have not, but I feel like it's definitely going to be a lot.
Well, it'll be a lot too, because the 3 games they're playing for the first round are going to coincide with the games that are going to be played because teams have Christmas games in the NFL. So one of those being the Chiefs. There'll be those games on that Saturday as well. And then I think it'll be like you'll get Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, you'll get between NFL and college football between the 28th and 1st. That's a lot of college football. Tell your families you're going to be stuck on the tube. You're not going to be doing anything else, right?
No, and I think the expanded playoff is great. I just hope like the top 4 get a bye, like the 5-12 game or whatever is not just an absolute massacre. I hope every game comes down to the wire. I think the expanded playoff is great. I think since they've came to this 4-team format, there's been some really good teams that probably should have been in, but they got left out. So I think this is a good thing. It obviously going to drive more revenue to college football. It's going to incentivize more games, I think, because okay, you can lose a game here or there and not have to worry about, well, now we're eliminated from the national championship hunt. But I think a lot more teams will make this more interesting. I think the more good games you have, because then less players are opting out. Like Ohio State last year when they played Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, they were starting like their 3rd string quarterback. But now the Cotton Bowl, well, I guess it's a semifinal game, but if you're in the top 12, now less guys are opting out to go prepare for the draft. So I think it makes the games better.
Oh, yeah, it does. You got another headline for us?
Yes, I do. It involves kind of what we've been talking about this week.
It's been a lot. A lot of things are coming to a head this week with the world of gambling and athletes colliding.
Yeah, this goes back to like the original sports player this year getting caught, Jonte Porter, brother of Michael Porter Jr., the Nuggets star. Federal officials make arrest in alleged NBA betting scheme involving Jonte Porter. A Brooklyn man, authorities say, assisted Jonte Porter in the scheme, has been arrested and detained pending trial. Long Five Fam, 38, also known as Bruce, was apprehended at John F. Kennedy Airport on Monday, holding a one-way ticket to Australia, according to a criminal complaint filed in the Brooklyn federal court. So, yeah, we're talking about Marcano for the MLB, everything that happened with Shohei Ohtani at the beginning of the MLB season, and then Jonte Porter is kind of like the original guy. And then even if you go back last year, there were some guys from like Iowa State and at the college level, around some college sports at Iowa and Iowa State were caught betting. They're cut down on a little bit. It's getting real serious for maybe these bookies that were helping these professional or college athletes make bets illegally.
Yeah. And final headline here is we'll get you out in a few moments before we get to what is wrong with you. We've known this has been coming. The new NBA media rights deal, it's caused a flurry because TNT and the execs there at TNT Sports did not make a good enough bid to outbid NBC or Amazon. And that means the best pre and post and NBA show is going to go away as it is right now. The NBA, according to Front Office Sports, is closing in on deals that would bring in $76 billion in media revenue over the next 11 years, increasing its annual fees by more than 250%. The one mainstay we'll see is ESPN. They're going to pay $2.6 billion a year for their package of games. That'll also include the playoffs. And like we're seeing now, the NBA Finals is going to be on ABC coming up here soon. NBC jumping back into things. You'll see games on USA TV, and I potentially, depending on when, they might put games on a Sunday night game on on NBC proper. with them eliminating their sports network a few years back. They're going to pay $2.5 billion a year, and Amazon is getting into the game much more. The sports game, broadcasting game, much more. Is they're going to pay $1.8 billion per year. So Amazon Sports quickly building itself up. They started getting the NFL. And I believe they're going to get a NASCAR package next year that's going to include NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt Jr. to be on their broadcast team. And now they're going to get the NBA. So get ready for Prime Video to be your place to go for sports, because that's where it is leading. The league has not announced these new set of media rights deals yet, but they're set to carry the games. These broadcast contracts are set to start in 2025. So we're going to get one more season of NBA on TNT. But then it'll be from 2025 to 2036. So that'll wrap up here for our headline segment. Just want to remind everybody, all of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have the designated driver, use your rideshare apps, or plan a sober ride ahead home. That'll do it for the headline segment. When we come back, we'll get into what is wrong with you. This is 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you time here on 580 Sports Talk? Spencer and Trenton hanging with you. Dan out on baby watch, has hopefully soon he will have his baby being born into this world. Brendan is on vacation. He'll be back next week, but Spencer and Trenton holding it down here for the youngest in charge movement. Time to get to what is wrong with you here on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Monday's winner is still the winner so far. Dan's story from Monday of a man that stole a liquor truck in hopes of selling off booze to pay drug debt, except for he told the cops his plan. That is the weekly winner so far. It beat yesterday's stories as well. I'll start today. We have a kind of similar theme for both of our stories. It involves men in the nude. So a naked man in Florida chopped off a victim's hands with machete. Tells cops, is he dead? I tried to kill him. If naked Florida man chopped off another man's hands with a machete and said that to a cops. According to authorities, police in Miami Gardens discovered the victim around 4 a.m. Monday with a severed hand and profusely bleeding from his head following a 911 call. According to a police report obtained by WPLG in Florida, a blood-covered machete was found nearby. Witnesses told police that they saw a man sprinting from the grisly scene completely naked around the time they attacked. The cops found 54-year-old Tyrone Arthur Reinant lounging on a sofa not far away after the victims described his attacker. According to the report, police didn't release a motive, but that Ryan's estranged wife, who has a restraining order against him, lives close by. Is he dead? I tried to kill him. He told police, allegedly confessing to police that he was being taken into custody. The victim was taken to the hospital for treatment. Ryan was charged with attempted murder, causing injury and domestic violence and violation of an injunction. He is being held without bond at Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center. So this guy might have wanted to get back at his ex-wife or estranged wife. Not too sure. There's not a motive given. But Trenton, another story you have with a naked guy.
Yeah. And this also happens in Florida because that's where all the weird things seem to happen. It's not as violent, but an extremely amped up naked driver smashes into lobby of Martin County Jail, Sheriff's Office say. So with that, this happened late Monday night. This guy smashes in to the police station and then threatened to light himself on fire, authorities said. The Martin County Sheriff's Office said Joseph Leedy, 40, is now behind bars in jail, in that exact same jail, facing multiple counts of aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, criminal mischief, and resisting arrest without violence. At a news conference on Tuesday, Chief Deputy John Bunsick said Leedy, who was disrobed other than wearing a lady's top, crashed into the glass lobby doors, then threw 2 rubber snakes and multiple cell phones into the lobby. After that, Leedy started pouring motor oil on his car and threatened to light the vehicle and himself on fire, according to the report. The officer said that Leedy refused to cooperate with deputies' commands, so they were forced to tase him and take him into custody. While our deputies were interacting with him, he kept saying things like, "The devil told me to kill everyone," and he kept sharing his disdain for President Donald Trump, according to the police officer. The chief deputy then added that paramedics gave Leedy multiple doses of ketamine to calm him down, but it did not sedate him. Leedy was taken to the Cleveland Clinic Martin South Hospital, but was later released and booked into the Martin County Jail.
So he was just booked into the jail that he ran into.
Yes. They released him from the hospital and put him right back in there. It also says that he was living in his vehicle, that he crashed into the jail lobby. He's never been arrested, according to their knowledge at the sheriff's office, but he has received multiple trespass warnings in the past. He had, while the reports of the results of the blood test on Leedy have not come back yet, authorities believe he was under the influence of a controlled substance.
Wow, shocker.
The medication that a normal person would be sedated by was not affecting him at all. So that does lead us to believe that he's built up a tolerance of different types of drugs. Nobody was in the lobby at the time of the crash. The jail receptionist left the lobby about 30 minutes before the crash happened. And then they said, while he did penetrate the initial door to the lobby at the time, nothing in the jail was ever compromised. The jail is built extremely well. There's double layers of concrete wall behind this door. The jail and our jail staff and our inmates were all safe during the entire encounter. In wake of the crash, the sheriff's office plans to install concrete bollards on the sidewalk in front of the jail to prevent cars from hitting the building in the future. So, in short, guy that lives in his car, probably on a controlled substance, no criminal record, drives into the police station, threatens to light himself on fire, throws rubber snakes and phones all over the jail, and then that's it. Now he's in jail.
That's a crazy story, but I don't know. This guy wanted to kill a guy, and he tried to tell them Oh yeah, I tried to do it. I tried to kill him, and as Dan says, tie goes sobriety in my point. So I'm going to vote for the story that I brought on today of the guy chopping off the victim's hands. Where are you going?
I think I'm going to agree with you because why did he just chop off his hand? Like, that's what gets me is like he chops off his hand and then doesn't really seem to go far from the scene, and then admits and it just like immediately admits to the crime. Like, yeah, I did it. Is that guy dead now? Like, why chop off his hand if you're trying to kill someone? That doesn't seem like that doesn't seem the way like you'd go about it. Like chopping off a hand just seems weird to me.
Yeah. But then when you look at the story that we have, the weekly winner so far, he also told police of his plans. So I don't know where we go with this. What's your take on this? But who's going to continue to be, is our weekly winner going to continue, or are we going to have a new weekly winner? What's your thoughts?
I like the liquor truck story still. I mean,
yeah, I do too. So we'll go with that. That'll be the weekly winner, continuing as we'll have 2 more editions of What Is Wrong With You this week. But all of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver. Use your rideshare app or plan ahead for a sober ride. We'll be right back on this edition of 580 Sports Talk with Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com for Wildcat Wrap Up. This is 580 Sports Talk. Welcome back to this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan on vacation. Dan is on baby watch. And yesterday was a big day to be a Wildcat. They got a big commitment yesterday. Before we get to that, though, with Tim Fitzgerald, I want to remind everybody, Alpha Media is proud to partner with the Kansas Drive to Zero Coalition and encourage you to join Kansas Fans with a Plan. Always have a designated driver or other sober ride to and from your destination. We're now joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline by Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. Tim, how are you doing?
Brother, you're flying solo?
Yeah. Dan is on baby watch and Brendan's on vacation.
Now, is it his baby or he's just watching babies? Because that's kind of creepy.
No, his wife is about to have their baby.
Okay, that's a good explanation.
Yeah, it is a good
You
explanation.
shouldn't be staring at other people's babies. Taking a day off of work to do so is even worse.
Yes.
Well, good. That's good. I'm not sure how I feel about him reproducing, but that's kind of cool. Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Some big Kansas State news yesterday. They have themselves another transfer, and their roster is coming together so far very well. Where we were a few weeks ago when we talked, I asked you a question about it, and you were like, looking kind of bleak. But they have a new transfer, and I'm going to mess up his name, so I'm going to let you say it.
It's literally easy. It's Ugana Onyenso. It's just like it looks like. It seems more intimidating, but even I could get it. And it's a good player. Now look, is he a complete player? No, I'll be honest, he's not. He's not known for his offensive prowess. He's been pretty harmless on that end of the floor. It's been an area of his game that needs work. He's been working on it, and I'm sure Jerome Tang and his coaches will be pretty diligent about getting to work on it. But he did play about 15 minutes a game at Kentucky. He's 7 feet, 250 pounds. And the reason he's on a roster like Kentucky is he might be the best shot blocker in the country. And he's a very effective rebounder. And those were the two things this roster really needed. They needed another, true big guy that can defend on that end against other big guys. So this is a really nice pickup. If they can get him going offensively, it'll be an incredible pickup.
And this was
the missing piece for me.
Yeah. So he was in the draft. He decided to stick around for a few more seasons, or at least another season. But the big thing there, 2.1 blocks a game in 13.9 minutes. You can't ask for a guy to do more with the time that he's given when he's as tall as he is, right?
Yeah. He's had high block numbers in a number of games. I think he had 5 in his NCAA tournament game. So, look, I mean, you got an elite rim protector to go with the players that can flat out score that K-State's added. You're in pretty good shape. Now, the problem is, and what made him difficult to play larger minutes, not just because of the size limiting his minutes, but also it changed how teams had to defend Kentucky on Kentucky's offensive end, because he really wasn't of great importance to stop it. So they were able to really kind of ignore him down there and focus and maybe sag down into the lane and take away the driving portion of it. And it got difficult for Kentucky to operate too much. But Jerome Tang and the company know that well. And I'll be blunt here. Kentucky doesn't like to develop players. They wanted guys to be complete, ready to go to the draft, and that's how they built their program. And I think even John Calipari realized eventually it wasn't sustainable. And so I think K-State will get that out of him. Will he ever be a great scorer? Probably not. But if he wants to play in the NBA, he better figure that out to a degree, because he just won't have a chance if he's completely useless on that end.
So K-State got some help down low, but now everyone's waiting. Where are we now with Arthur Kaluma here a week past the last time we talked to you?
Well, it's interesting. K-State's at 12. They've got one scholarship left. That would be Kaluma's, and we'll see if he decides to come back. We'll see if they're in on some other good players. They're in a really good situation here. They've got some options at that spot, and we'll see what pops up for K-State. I think we might know next week. We'll find out, and I think this roster has come together pretty well. They had some whiffs early on that were unsettling, but typically when they get kids on campus, they get them to sign, and that was his case. I don't think he even bothered going to North Carolina. He loved K-State, he loved the coaching staff, made connections, and that's quite often what happens with this group of guys. It's when they let someone wander off and leave campus and go to somewhere else that sometimes they get talked out of K-State. So as long as they get a guy on, they got a good shot. We'll see what Kaluma does. He's sniffing around Memphis, which picked up Naquan Tomlin last year. So that's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. And in fact, I texted someone associated with K-State basketball and they said exactly that. This is going to be interesting because they don't quite know where Tomlin's head, or excuse me, where Arthur's head's at.
So as the roster stands right now, you should have one more scholarship spot. What is your, so we played back audio yesterday from the Field 68 podcast with Jeff Goodman and they talked about what they are, what they thought they were going to be before, what they could be. What is your take on what the ceiling and the floor is for this next season's Kansas State team?
I don't even know on the ceiling. Basketball is so unpredictable. If I sat here, even at mid-season with K-State and Jerome Tang's first season, I wouldn't have said the ceiling was Elite Eight. But I guess you got to put it there. I mean, I guess the ceiling for K-State would actually be Final Four. Do I believe that? Of course not. But I'm not going to write it off because if you emerge from this conference with intact and healthy and, with some battle scars that made you a better team, you can go an awful long way. The floor, of course, is repeating next year. It just doesn't work. They don't have, it just doesn't come together. I don't see that. I don't see this being an NIT or less team. I don't, because they've got too many good players, too many skill sets. They're much more athletic than they were last year. They have better scores, more options than they did last year. So if it comes together on the defensive end, this is going to be a really good team. And they've still got one more piece that could add a lot to this team. If they get Arthur Kaluma back, if they get the player out of Illinois, who I'm just spacing off his name, they could be in really good shape. I mean, really good shape. So we'll see how it develops.
We're talking with Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com for our weekly Wildcat Roundup here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirit Hotlines. And the player trying to think of is Coleman Hawkins. That's a name I've seen floating. I've also seen
Thank you.
Jameer Watkins from Florida State. If Arthur Kaluma does not come back, which two do you think K-State would lean towards out of those two right there? And where do they stand with them right now?
I think they're equal in standing. Last I knew, Hawkins, thank you so much for the name, was down to K-State and Arkansas, but Arkansas just had a guy come back unexpectedly that kind of plays the same position. So I don't know. Maybe other people are in on him now. You guys know how the portal is. You think it's all wrapped up, and the kid decides, hey, I'm going to go visit school X, and then that's where he ends up. So with the NIL, it's not over till it's over. But that would be the guy I think they'll end up. And if they end up with him, holy cow, this is going to be a really good, exciting basketball team.
Let's switch gears now to the last Kansas State team in athletics still playing, I believe, and that is the baseball team. They get ready to head to Charlottesville, Virginia to take on University of Virginia for the Super Regionals. What a team that Pete Hughes has put together and kept around, and the schedule that he put together this year to get them to this point, but also the players. He mentioned this an umpteen amount of times in the last couple of weeks, just the players wanting to stick around for another year when they had other opportunities.
Yeah, it's been huge. It really has. And this was a team that fans were really optimistic about. And they did play a challenging schedule. They took some lumps in the non-conference. They took some lumps in the Big 12, but they always had enough pitching to be competitive, certainly with their top two guys. And if they can get by with two pitchers, if they can go to Virginia and win two games, they're in really good shape. Culpepper, is a first-round pick at shortstop. I mean, he's a dynamic, exciting player. And they just have some pieces, some individuals on this team that make the ceiling, if you want to go back to that discussion, much higher than K-State baseball probably has ever had. The last team to go to the tournament also went to the Super Regionals in 2013. They were a really good team. They just had something about them. They were the cardiac cats. They always just won at the end, and they were good at that. But this team seems to be, more on script to go to Omaha. And going through Virginia is going to be tough, but it's very attainable. I mean, Virginia was ranked 12th and Arkansas 5th, and they just blew through Arkansas. So we'll see where this takes them. But I think optimism is very high that K-State might make its first College World Series appearance.
And if I would have told you back in, was this February when the preseason poll came out, where they were picked 5th in the conference, do you think we would be talking today right now about them back in February?
I thought that was low. It turned out to be, fairly accurate. And I would have slapped you upside the head if you would have told me that the last two Big 12 teams are going to be West Virginia and K-State. That's a kind of interesting development, kind of fun storyline. And I agree that, it's a little bit surprising, but they're built for this. They have the tools and they have the now experience, the battle scars again, to get them into the College World Series. Now, I don't know anything about when they get there. I know this, they'll have a huge contingent of fans that will be on their side. And, I did one of my videos on this. Most of the schools known for taking big contingents to Omaha are gone. So Kansas State could kind of have the crowd in many ways up there if that makes a difference. So, but this team, it really hasn't. They've been pretty good on the road, which I think buoys the optimism going into Charlottesville.
And if the bracket that I'm seeing from the NCAA is correct, if both teams get by their super regionals, you'll have a Big 12 matchup in the first round of the College World Series with Kansas State and West Virginia. That's a little far to look forward to, but both these teams are at different spots. I think West Virginia at the beginning of the year, they were expected so much, and then Weatherholt was hurt for most of the season, but you can see a Big 12 matchup in the College World Series.
That's fun and also kind of disappointing. You'd like to have them on opposite sides.
Yeah.
So if everything went magically, they could play for the championship. But, that will be fun to have a conference rivalry right out of the blocks in Omaha. So got to get through Virginia. Really good program. I noted that of the 16 teams left, 5 are from the SEC, 5 are from the ACC, just showing what an advantage those warm weather states have in this sport. And, so K-State is kind of an outlier. There's not many, northern teams. Both Oregon schools are in it, but they have the coastal weather. They might get rain, but it's not as cold. The real outlier, of course, is Evansville, but this is fun. This is really fun, and it'll be great to see what they do this weekend at Virginia.
Wrapping things up here with Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com here on the Wildcat Wrap-Up. We saw a top target for Kansas State football make a weekend trip and his official visit to Kansas over the weekend, and Lincoln Cure, the 5-star out of Goodland, the tight end. Where is Kansas State with him right now, and has he taken his official visit, or when will he?
No, I don't know the exact date, but he's got KU as first, and then he's got Oregon in there, Texas A&M in there, and he's going to wrap up in Manhattan. I'm going to be real honest here. I'm going to be shocked if it isn't K-State. Every indication has been. Oregon seems to be kind of climbing up his list, but I think playing at home, playing for the purple has always been something he's wanted to do. Kansas is in the mix because his brother ended up as a preferred walk-on there, transferring into KU. And they kind of mixed his official visit with moving him up to Lawrence. That was kind of cool for him. But he's his own guy. He made that very clear in an interview with us. And the NIL doesn't seem to be a big push for the family or him. And I think, I just think he's going to end up in Manhattan. Again, I'll be surprised. It's Oregon to keep an eye on, even though he's got a great relationship with Colin Klein down at A&M. I just don't see him gush about A&M quite like he does K-State and then Oregon. So he's a special player. He's got his 5th star. He'd be a huge pickup. And I don't think it hurts in any way to have Avery Johnson, a guy a year older that was, of the same kind of notoriety who chose K-State. And now he would get to play with him at K-State. So I think that's something that might be really important in this whole push.
Tim Fitzgerald, thanks for the time. We'll talk to you next week. GoPowerCat.com is where you can find his content. Thanks, Fitz.
Thanks, boys. Great job.
We'll step aside for a break. We'll be back for the final hour of 580 Sports Talk after this break, where we'll do something fun next hour. You're tuned into 580 Sports Talk. Welcome back to 580 Sports Talk here, coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero Studios. Spencer Dupuis and Trenton Craxner, happy to have you with us for the youngest in charge movement, the extra unanticipated hour that we're going to get today due to Royals baseball being postponed up in Cleveland. That game, I'm guessing because of the travel schedules that are supposed to take place tomorrow, will not have a doubleheader. They'll just play their normal 12-10 start and then head on. I believe the Royals are coming back home to take on the Padres this weekend.
They had the Padres last week, and
not the
Mariners
Padres,
this weekend,
Mariners.
and then the Yankees.
Yes.
And then they go to Los Angeles, play the Dodgers. So the next 10 days might be real rough for Royals fans. So
it's already been a rough few days.
Yes, it might not be the worst thing that the game got canceled today.
But Dan is out. He's on paternity leave. We're on baby watch. So we will update you when there is a baby being born or after the baby has been born, maybe by tomorrow's show, who knows. Brendan is on vacation out in the greater West somewhere, visiting something on their drive across the West. We'll just say that. And we have you for an extra hour here due to Royals baseball being postponed, the unanticipated hour of the youngest in charge movement. We'll get to some fun things later on. We actually got a call. I should have asked him his name. I did not ask the caller's name there. But we'll play a fun game later in the show where it has to do with Florida Man. So if you go to Florida Man birthdays and you look that up, you can type in your birthday and see what wild story happened on whatever day that it happened. So that'll be something fun to do later on this hour. And then we'll also do a round of Ask Me Anything here for this unanticipated hour. You can throw that on in the YouTube live chat on Facebook, or you can throw it in on the Top City Metal Supply text line. That's 785-272. I'm going to mess this up, so I'm pulling it up from my notes here. 785-272-9429 is the Top City Metal Supply text line. Send your Ask Me Anything questions there or on the YouTube chat, and we'll get to it later this hour, towards the end of the hour. But first, we will play back some audio here. Yesterday we don't normally do this because it's just a lot of stuff that we air. We usually talk about it during certain points, but we are going to play back audio from yesterday's Kansas State baseball press conference as Pete Hughes and the gang get ready to, I think they're traveling today, I would assume, or they traveled last night to travel to Virginia for the Super Regionals against the University of Virginia. Let me pull up here wire ready, but Pete Hughes speaks about 14 minutes. We'll get of his 30-minute presser. It was a very long one. Couldn't pull out the whole thing. So let me pull it up here. Now I can't find it here. But Pete Hughes spoke to the media for about 30 minutes. We have just a few minutes of it. So let's play it right here. You have it queued up.
For our program,
here we go, Pete Hughes.
And our players and our community. I said it a million times. We represent the best college community in the country. So that's where a lot of the pride and satisfaction comes from is pleasing our community and who've supported us over the years, and the most loyal fan base out there. They show up all the time, up 5 runs, down 5 runs. They're not going anywhere. So have a lot of pride in that and playing well and accomplishing things for our community. But I'm happy for our guys. You look at everybody at this table right now had a chance to go somewhere else last year, and they chose to be with each other and stay as a team to accomplish great things. So it's just pretty cool as the head coach when you see kids set goals for themselves and accomplish those goals, because they're great kids, they're great baseball players, they're goal-oriented, but most of all, they're loyal to each other, and being a teammate is the most important thing to them. So they're great role models for our younger guys in this portal generation. to stick with something and to be loyal and to come back and to play for a school you love and play with teammates you love. So to me, that's what this next step's all about. And we're refocused. The goal is at hand. We have a new set of goals, and it's to play great this weekend. And I'm just looking forward to the next step with these guys.
Pete, Memphis isn't the typical recruiting area that Kansas State goes to in a lot of sports, but you found a really good one with Kalen down there. Can you think back and tell me about what you liked about him as a high school guy and how you ended up signing him here?
Well, Coach Waits and Thomas Hughes were the point people on KC's recruitment. And it's just not regional. It's not the way college baseball recruiting is set up. It's not area to area. They have these tournaments where they get the best kids in the country all in one place. And we just scour and see if there's a fit. And, we lucked out with KC, that's for sure. He was, he had a lot of upside. He was a switch hitter. That didn't last long, right, KC? No. And he was also a pitcher, and he likes to talk about his pitching prowess. But we love athletes. We love kids who can run and have a high skill set. And we love kids who are focused, who are motivated to be great at this game, who are good people. And he checked all those boxes.
How about from your perspective, Kalen, what really turned you on about the Wildcats?
Just the community. The coaching staff. I mean, from the first day that I talked to Coach Waits, because I think I was the first guy that I spoke with, I knew there was something there. I knew I was going to, find a home here at Kansas State, and that's exactly what I did. But I think it took like 2 years, the recruiting process.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, they saw me my sophomore year, and I was a switch hitter at the time. And after that long 2 years, we finally pulled the trigger, and I haven't been happier since.
And, obviously, you were swinging the bat really good down in Arkansas. When you were up there, did you feel like you were in the zone, or can you describe just what you were seeing when the ball was coming at you and you're in that kind of a groove?
Sorry. Yeah, I felt comfortable. I was playing with a chip on my shoulder. I think all the guys were. We had something that I think we played with. We had some of the best baseball played. Sorry, my bad. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry, I got my words mixed up. We played some of the best baseball that we've ever played before, and we couldn't do it without each other. We trusted each other all season long, and I think it finally came together, in Arkansas, and that's what the coach has been drilling on us all season long, and it finally came out.
KC, you've come a long way since shagging balls at St. Benedict's when you're 14 years old on the field after practice. What have you learned most about yourself during your journey?
I think I learned that I'm a competitor at heart. I've always been a competitor, but I've always found ways to dig deeper and just find my potential. I don't think I'm where I want to be at, but the ceiling is still high for me. And looking back, all that hard work that I put in is starting to pay off, and I feel like it's going to continue to do that moving forward. And I'm just excited for the future.
You have Omaha written around Twain. You have him in your hallways. You see him every day. When you look at Omaha and think about Omaha, what comes to mind first? And when did you put that signage up inside Twain?
Well, when I was on sabbatical and looking for my next job, I knew that I knew I wouldn't go to a program that couldn't go to Omaha. That's what I got in this profession to do. It took one meeting with Gene Taylor to know that he wanted to resource this program to go to Omaha. And he had the same goal that I had, and we talk about going to Omaha every single day. And if you come in my office, there's an Omaha standard that above my desk. And that's how we go about our business every day. That's how I want our coaching staff and our players to go about their business every day at an Omaha standard. But you have to raise expectations. When you come into a job where that's not said every day, and you have to preach it, you have to believe in it. We talk about it in our dugout every single day. It's our number one goal in this program is to win a national championship, and to be able to put that on paper, we've come a long way. Is it tricking our guys to believe in it? No, we live it, we prepare for it, and we work for it every day.
You've said a couple times, I've heard you've told the guys to stay greedy. What does that exactly entail?
It's just complacency will get you in this game, and we're not satisfied. Goal-driven people are never satisfied, and they're looking for the next goal, looking for the next win, looking for the next hit. You have to be greedy at this level of competition, especially in the month of June. So I'll keep preaching that message.
What kind of resilience has this team shown through the course of the season?
Yeah, you've heard me talk about it a lot. There's no one that traveled like us in the country. That'll wear you out. This game will humble you. Everybody has its lows. Individually, you just look across this table. All these guys have been in little ruts this season, but it's how long do you stay in those ruts and how you come out of it. Chuck Ingram's a great example of sticking with the game, respecting the game, and it'll come back to you. But it's a resilient group. You get swept in Norman, got to get on a plane to play at UConn and then at Northeastern. Fly that night, get back here at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then have to beat Oklahoma State 2 out of 3, and have the right mindset and energy level to do that. That's a resilient group of guys, It doesn't happen with selfish people either. These guys they're team guys. They can handle a lot of adversity. They know how to bounce back. We have quite a few come from behind wins this year. I mean, that's just a small example of who these guys are character-wise.
And Tyrell, what was it like to get the ball on Sunday night?
Like I've said before, it's what I've always dreamed to do. The last 2 seasons were hard watching from home in a regional and other teams in regional. And it was just something I've always wanted. And I think I made the most of the moment of the chance that I got. And I'm just happy my coaches gave me the ball.
And Tyson, what was it like going out there for 3+ on Saturday night? Was there anything that was going to get you off that mound?
No, sir. I don't think there ever is. Anytime Coach Hughes asked me to take the ball, I'm going to go out there and do my best to get as many outs as we need to win the ball game. So that's what I tried to do. I knew the defense was going to play behind me, and I needed to get more outs than normal. But with the team that we have, it's no issue.
And Kalen, at what point in your baseball career did you start thinking that a professional career was likely in the cards for you?
Probably, say middle school. I found out that you can make money from playing baseball. So after that, I was just like, well, I can do this for my life, as my life, as a job. So probably middle school.
I know we talked last summer, but Team USA, just the intensity that you bring and the fireness that you bring out there when you throw 60-some pitches against Arkansas, and where does that fire come from? Where does that just intensity come from? And knowing you had, as you were just asked about that 3 innings, where does that fire come from? Was the arm loose? Where does that intensity come from for you?
I think it's just being a competitor and loving the game. Sorry. I've grown up in a competitive household. Me and all my siblings and my parents played multiple sports growing up, and it doesn't matter, if we're playing cards at the table or it's a video game or we're playing Arkansas in a regional. I'm going to do everything I can to win. So I think emotion comes with that and excitement, and just doing whatever I can to make the team win.
And maybe for you too, you get the ball to start everything. what were the emotions like? What was it? Was it just the intensity high? What were you feeling? What was that preparation like going into that game? And obviously the rain delay and all that stuff, but what were you feeling going into that and just building that momentum obviously through the whole regional process?
Just feeling confidence. We've talked a lot about the amount of traveling and the tough teams we've played this year, and that's really prepared all of us for moments like that, so that we don't get overwhelmed. I mean, and then our coaches have done a great job just kind of instilling a sense of confidence, and whoever they give the ball to, I think the whole team trusts to get as many outs as is needed. So just a lot of confidence, both from me and from the whole team.
Coach, I'm wondering with Tyson, is there a leash? Is there a pitch limit, or how long can he go?
No, we can try to figure that out. You know, I've been watching him for 3 years now, and I kind of know what his ceiling is, you know, and he's never not going to say I can't go back out there, but that's kind of my job. And I didn't want to give him 10 outs the other night. I wanted to give him, really, it was scripted 9 outs or 6 outs, you know, and he's the ultimate competitor, you know, and I do think he was, you were close to getting tapped out the other night, right? So I could see it. And, you know, every pitch is max effort, you know, and that's emotional and it's draining physically as well. So I'm not sure, you know, nothing he does really surprises me. He can, ideally, I'd like to have him with 2 inning outings, you know.
Will the plan be to go Owen and then Jackson Friday, Saturday, and then I guess secondarily would Ty start a Sunday game? Is there a chance we see him
breaking it down tonight, huh? Today.
We won't talk to you again before.
Yeah. I think we'll leave it with Owen and Wentworth, and then we'll probably go TBA for game 3. If we need to use Ty in a high leverage situation on Friday or Saturday, we'll do that. So I think it's safe to leave that Sunday game TBA.
There you go. The head coach of the Kansas State baseball team, Pete Hughes, leaving the Sunday starter to be determined. They'll get things going tomorrow. I believe it's ESPNU, but on the NCAA bracket, I think I've seen ESPN2. 6 p.m. on ESPNU at University of Virginia for game 1, and then game 2 p.m. Saturday. And then if they have to get to a game 3, which Coach Hughes keeping his cards to the vest about a pitcher, so saying maybe Tyson Neighbors will have to come in game 1 or 2. Game 3 would be 2 p.m. on Sunday. All those, I believe, on ESPNU or 2 on the ESPN family of networks on linear television, not on ESPN Plus. What Kansas State has done down the stretch of the season and into the tournament, they had their backs against the wall against West Virginia, beat West Virginia 8-4. Fortunately, fell to TCU 9-4 in the Big 12 tournament to get eliminated. But then going to the Fayetteville Regional as the 3 seed, having to face a high-powered La Tech team, Louisiana Tech team, winning 19-4, a game in which started on a Friday, and they had to postpone the rest of the game till a Saturday morning, and then they had to get back on it later in the afternoon and take on the number 5, I believe, overall team in the country, Arkansas, the 1 seed, the host, and they won that game 7-6 before beating Southeast Missouri State 7-2 to get to where they are right now. But this weekend's going to be fun to watch Kansas State baseball, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to air any games unless there's a rain out from the Royals, but can't count on that. So unfortunately, we won't be able to air any games due to the Royals game times this weekend. But just want to remind everybody, all of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver. Use your rideshare app or plan ahead for a sober ride home. We'll step aside for a break. When we come back, we'll jump back into PFF ratings here for cornerbacks this time and see where Trent McDuffie ranks among the top 32. And Send us your Ask Me Anything questions on the Facebook, YouTube comments, also via the text line 785-272-9429, the Top City Metal Supply text line 785-272-9429, 785-272-9429. We'll be back right after this from the Drive to Zero studios. This is 580 Sports Talk. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk, the youngest in charge movement here live, coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. Spencer Dupuy, Trenton Craxton are happy to have you with us right now for this final hour, which some people tuning in were maybe expecting to hear the Royals. That game postponed due to weather in Cleveland. They'll make that up at the end of August 26th, when they go back to Cleveland. But we've got some more time to talk more things. We'll get to a Royal segment next, along with Ask Me Anything. But first, let's go back to our favorite rankings ahead of the 2024 season. Pro Football Focus does a great job putting out this content by their different writers. We talked earlier about the top linebackers and that they had Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil back-to-back at 14 and 15. Let's get into the top cornerback rankings. This one by John Costco from Pro Football Focus. At number one, I wouldn't have anticipated anything different. It's Sauce Gardner, New York Jets, excuse me. He's coming into his own. But number two, Trent McDuffie, Their little blurb on him: McDuffie, a 2022 first-round pick, helped the Chiefs to back-to-back Super Bowls victories to start his career. He has graded well, earning an 83.8 coverage grade that ranks 7th at the position over the last 2 seasons. However, he excels at preventing separation, rushing the passer, and stopping the run, giving him an elite all-around game per Pro Football Focus. And Trenton, he's now, just like us today, getting the keys to the car to be the number 1 cornerback. What do you think about this grade for him, this ranking, and what he really needs to do this next season as he's going to take over as the number 1 corner?
I'm surprised he's this high. I mean, I know he's really good, but like not seeing L'Jarius Sneed maybe higher than him because he always took on the challenge of guarding the number 1s for other teams. That kind of surprised me. But yeah, McDuffie's fantastic, and he had the unfortunate of playing on that Arizona Cardinals field for his first ever game, messed up his hamstring, missed like 6 weeks of his rookie year, but he's been fantastic. He's yet to record an interception though, as a corner so far in the league. So I think this year, he's got to have a little bit better ball skills because he's dropped a number of interceptions over the previous 2 years. He's really good, and he's worked in the slot, played outside. He's done a lot of work, and he's just got to train up those young guys, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, even Shamari Connor, Nazee Johnson. Like, he's got to coach those guys up because they're going to be playing a huge role this year. So he's got to kind of take on that role as a mentor, even though he's just as experienced as some of those other guys pro-wise.
Yeah, and looking at the list through the top 5, 3 is Travarius Ward of the 49ers, Pat Surtain, the second is number 4, Jalen Johnson of the Bears is number 5. Kind of some notables, Jalen Ramsey at 6, Jair Alexander at 7, former Chief Kendall Fuller coming in at 8 after he makes the move from the Commanders down to the Dolphins. What they say about him is he's been excellent for several years now, putting up an 85.0 grade over the last 2 years and preventing separation at a very high level. While he won't wow you at the stat sheet with gaudy interception or forced fumble or forced incompletion numbers, he's as reliable as they come when it comes to making tackles and being sticky in coverage. I agree with that as a Commander fan watching him for the last few years. I would agree. They have Michael Carter II of the Jets at 9. So the Jets have 2 top 10 corners, according to this list. Teron Johnson for the Bills at 10. Most recently former Chief, L'Jarius Sneed checks in at 12. So 10 spots lower than Trent McDuffie, the guy that will take over for him as the number 1 corner in Kansas City. They say about Sneed, after helping the Chiefs to 2 straight Super Bowl victories, Sneed will suit up for the Titans in 2024 and hope to form a lockdown tandem with Roger McCreary. Sneed was often tasked with shutting down the opponent's top receivers, and he did so with mixed results. He didn't allow a touchdown in the 2023 regular season, and his grade of 79.1 from 2021 to 2023 ranked 18th among players at the position. I think it's interesting that Sneed is 10 spots lower than McDuffie. Would you agree, Trenton?
Yeah. I think maybe always going up against the number 1 kind of hurts his numbers, and then he was very penalized with holding and some pass interference calls, illegal contact, all that nature. I think that kind of hurts his grade, but watching him on the field, I would definitely put him higher on this list over the 4 or 5 years he played with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that too. I was very confused when they had him 10 spots lower than McDuffie. Also, this list has Stephon Gilmore at 23. He is still currently a free agent and not signed with anybody. I don't know if the intent is for him to re-sign with the Cowboys, but he's listed as the Cowboys on this story, which is interesting.
Yeah.
He's still a free agent as we speak.
Yeah, Stephon Gilmore was good when I was in like middle school, but I think he's a little bit past his prime, and I think that showed on the field a little bit last year. Obviously, he had to play a bigger role with Trevon Diggs going
he
down.
allowed 734 yards, the most that he's allowed since his rookie season.
Yeah, he's beyond his prime, and I wouldn't be surprised if he remains a free agent for a while, because that elite status that he had for 4 or 5 years is just beyond. Took that wear and tear.
Yeah, but I don't know why he's on the list. Like, he's a free agent, and two,
I didn't even think he was that good last year.
I didn't either.
And they have Deron Bland, who led the league in interceptions, 31st on the list. I know he gave up a bunch of yards,
Yeah,
but he had like 9 interceptions, like 6 pick sixes last year, which is like the most ever in a season. I'm surprised he's not rated higher than Stephon Gilmore.
How about this? According to PFF right now, the Jets have the best cornerback room in the league. They have a third cornerback ranked 14th, DJ Reed. Are they really that stacked at defensive back? Like, I don't think of them as I think of Sauce Gardner. I just don't think of those other two guys.
DJ Reed, K-State legend, to where people would appreciate that. I'm surprised he's ranked lower than Michael Carter, because I do know who DJ Reed is, not only because he played at K-State, because he had a really good game when the Chiefs played up in New York last year. I'm not for sure entirely who this Michael Carter fella is that they have in the top 10. And maybe I just don't know much about the Jets, but the Jets last year were really good on defense, and they just had no quarterback play. So while I don't disagree that they have a really good defensive back room, probably one of the best in the league, I'm surprised that Michael Carter is ranked 9th, and while DJ Reed is not even in the top 10, personally.
Okay, I don't know if we can validate these PFF rankings anymore, because what do we say? His name was Michael Carter II.
Correct.
Right?
Yep, correct.
Now, I don't go all off this because, again, anybody can change it, but his Wikipedia page has nothing listed for his professional career besides his pre-draft measurables and the fact that he was drafted in the 5th round in the 2021 draft. Yeah, I don't understand.
Well, on PFF, it says he's the best. He's arguably been the best slot quarterback the past 2 years.
I get that, but like, I don't know. I'm starting to question these rankings because they have Stephon Gilmore on there, who's not even signed with a team, and it says Dallas got like. I'm starting to question these.
Yeah, and like you said, Wikipedia, anyone can go in there and change that stuff. But I feel like if you're a notable player, someone at least put something on your Wikipedia page for what you've done.
Like,
recently,
had a great game against so and so, locked down in the slot, like something, right?
Yeah.
Something there. That I don't know. That seems very rather interesting to me. They got Marlon Humphrey at 16. Obviously, injuries have he's suffered in the last 3 seasons, have hurt his play, but I think he could potentially, if he returns to his form, he could be in the top 10, top 12.
Oh yeah, Marlon Humphrey's really good at. He's kind of what I feel like is a hybrid role because it feels like he plays some safety for them too. So I can never remember if he's a safety or a defensive back, but yeah, he's a really, really talented player.
Yeah. And then another guy that's coming off injuries the last few seasons, ranked 17th, Denzel Ward with the Browns. He's the top 15 guy if he's not injured, I think, as well. They have Trayvon Diggs at 19. Obviously returns from that injury shortened year last year. He had 11 interceptions in 2021, but just 3 in 2022. And then he got hurt most of last year. So I think this is a put up or shut up year for him in Dallas.
Yeah, didn't he tear his ACL in like practice or something like that?
Yeah.
That was really unfortunate. He's kind of like in that Deron Bland mold where he gives up a lot of yards, but he can make that big play for you and get an interception, maybe take it back to the house. So, yeah, I would agree. There's a big year for him because he had a really good 2021 season. Then 22, he was kind of average. And then last year, he just had the unfortunate of tearing his ACL, I believe, in practice.
Yeah. So I'm sensing a trend here. I don't know if these guys are just more fans of the certain players and they rank them higher or their grades higher because of what they did and they just point out one thing or another. But it's 32. Obviously, not all 32 teams are going to be represented on each list, but there's like multiple guys for the Cowboys, which seems rather interesting. Like, especially with the Stephon Gilmore one, like the dude is regressing in his career, and he's not even on the team. So I don't know. But that's just something that I saw here. Again, throw in your Ask Me Anything questions in the YouTube chat, in the Facebook chat. You can also tweet us at 580 Sports Talk on Twitter. You can also send it to the Thompson email supply text line 785-272-9429. We're in the Kansas Drive to Zero studios, and we invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver, use your rideshare app, or plan ahead for a sober ride home. When we step aside for a quick break, when we come back, we'll talk more Royals here, as they are not playing today due to rain in Cleveland, but we'll get a little bit more talk about them as they will play tomorrow at 12:10 before we get on the air again. So this is 580 Sports Talk. We'll be back next. The youngest in charge movement coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. Spencer Dupuis, producer, engineer, summer intern, Trenton Craxner behind the glass. Dan Lucero is off for baby watch. He is on his paternity leave. Him and his wife are going to welcome in their child here any moment now. He said not to rush earlier, so I don't know. Any moment now. Could be now, could be later tonight, could be in the morning, sometime soon. But he will be out for the foreseeable future with the new addition to his family. And Brennan Dorzinski out west on vacation, traveling. He's a United States Western traveler, I guess is what you would say. He's multiple locations in the West this week, but he'll be back on Monday. It's just myself, Spencer, and Trenton with you as we will get you the rest of the way home here today, about 15 more minutes left in today's show. Let's talk a little Royals. Unfortunately, their game postponed tonight. That's why you're still hearing us. It was about less than 4 minutes till scheduled first pitch, but that game was postponed. Not postponed till tomorrow for a doubleheader. It's postponed to a doubleheader on August 26th, the next time the Royals are back in Cleveland. But a tough loss last night. They were up 5-0. Bobby Witt Jr. had 2 2-run shots, and then Hunter Renfroe had a solo shot. And then the best pitcher for the Royals and one of the best pitchers in the league, Seth Lugo, gave up 3 in the 4th. And then Quatrero sent him back out for the 7th. And he gave up a couple more runs, but then when the bullpen came on, they lost the game due to an error from Bobby Witt Jr. And our one and only intern, Trenton Craxner, last night was heated on the Twitter sphere.
Yeah, people thought I did not like Bobby Witt Jr. just because I tweeted out that Seth Lugo and Bobby Witt Jr. lost the game for the Royals last night. I'll be taking no further questions. And people thought that I was the biggest Bobby Witt Jr. hater just because I criticized him. And, yeah, he hit 2 massive home runs. That's awesome. But, he's just got to make that play. I kind of said it when Dan was still here. We talked about it at the top of the show. He's got to know how the defense is aligned and who's running down the first baseline. It seemed like a little bit of indecision. He gave a great answer in the post-game show that Bally Sports Kansas City put out. And, 100 games to go now, 10 games over 500. He's going to make plays for you more time than not, but he made a costly one last night, and that happens. Sometimes your best players don't come through for you. I mean, Seth Lugo had a 5-0 lead. He's been the best pitcher in the AL, and he just couldn't hold it. He had his worst start of the year in the biggest game of the year so far for Royals. So I think the most frustrating thing about the loss last night was the blown lead, and then that your 2 best players all year are kind of the reason for it. But, you got to bounce back tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be Brady Singer on the bump, no Daniel Lynch, so he got pushed back.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. That's a big help.
Yeah, I mean,
in a way, because then you don't have to roll out your 6th, 7th guy that has been down in AAA. You get an extra day of rest for all your pitchers, and then you go into the weekend.
Yeah, you'll probably Lynch. I think maybe they throw Lynch on Friday, but then you got Marsh, and then Reagan's will be pitching one of those games. It'll be interesting to see how Q wants to do that with the Royals, but yeah, you've lost 7 out of your last 8. You're really scuffling. You're just playing sloppy baseball, and you're losing some really good teams. So I don't think a rain out is the worst outcome for the Royals. It'd be different if it was during that 8-game win streak they had about 2 weeks ago. It'd be like, man, this could really mess it up. But maybe this is kind of the reset they needed. You can put the stock into a split tomorrow. You can go all in on getting a split, and then you break away from Cleveland, not losing any ground. Coming into a huge 7-game homestand against a really good Mariners team that's starting to come along. And then 4 with the best team in baseball, the New York Yankees, who are just crushing everyone. So I think the rainout was probably a good thing today, honestly. I don't know if I could have handled another disappointing loss if it came to that tonight. Just with the way it's been played, it's kind of been sucky. But if you told me 2 months ago, Spencer, 62 games of the year, the Royals would be 10 games over 500, I definitely would take that.
Yeah, I think I would too, especially with their historical factors and things like that. Got a couple more minutes here. Let's check in on questions here. As we ask for anything to be asked for us, from Vance on the YouTube comments, is there something in the city or county that you want to see / do when you haven't had a chance to do so? Yes, I want to go to the Evel Knievel Museum before they move it. I believe it's moving to Vegas soon. I think at the end of the year, maybe. So I want to do that. Is there anything you want to do, Trenton?
Well, actually,
even though you're kind of a native Topeka area guy, I don't know how to say what I just said.
I mean, I live close enough. I done a lot in Topeka, but Friday after work, some of my friends from high school just moved into a house down here in Topeka, so I was planning on visiting them. So I'm gonna go see what's going on, check out their new house, and hang out with them as they just moved in last week. So otherwise, I feel like I've done a lot around the city. The Evel Knievel Museum, I did not know that. I've never been there, but I've driven by it many times. I did not know it was moving though.
Yeah, it's moving to Vegas. because I think it'd be a bit more of an attraction in Vegas. I think it'll be going for what people are like it fits the Vegas vibe, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I've never been to Vegas, but
I haven't either.
It seems like everything's extravagant
Yes.
out there.
Let's see some more ask me anything questions. Frosted Flakes or Corn Flakes? Frosted Flakes guy here. What about you, Trent?
I love Frosted Flakes.
Yep.
It's one of my top 3 cereals. I don't know if I've ever had Corn Flakes. I probably have. They're good. I bet I probably have had them. Frosted Flakes are top 3 up there with Cinnamon Toast Crunch is number 1 for me. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is so good. I ate that a lot for breakfast growing up, which is awesome.
I was in a little bout with it when I moved here back in January. I had it for like 3 straight weeks, bought like a few of them. Mark, I have not been to the zoo, but definitely in the plans. My girlfriend who's moving here in less than a month, she'll be here at the start of next month. She really wants to go to the zoo. So definitely going to the zoo this summer or early fall. Yeah, the advanced, the 3 and only 3 primary words. I had to look that up. I did not know them, and Trenton gave it a go and didn't know anyway. So, yeah, not looking good for the both of us on that, Mark. But any other questions here? Shoot them over real fast here. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel for the bit, guys. If anything, for the bit, we're up to 542. Brennan comes back on Monday. If we get to like 560 before Monday, it'd be hilarious. Do you know about the bit, Trenton?
Yeah, you guys have referenced it many times. Apparently, when Brendan Dorwinski, I'm not even gonna try and butcher. I already did. When he's gone, apparently a lot of people subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, and then we just make a joke about it to him, and he's like, "Oh, I guess nobody wants to hear me."
Yeah, so call your mother, call your brother, call anyone. Tell them to subscribe if they're in the area. Talk to friends. We appreciate all the listening and stuff. And if you want to somewhat join in on the bit, you can by recommending us to your friends who are active on the YouTube pages.
Yeah. So it's youtube.com/580 or at 580 Sports Talk. That's where our live stream is. We have a question on the text line. No, we don't have any. I got to do the virtual jump at the museum for Evel Knievel.
The virtual jump, is that like
virtual bike jump? I'm assuming you like put on glasses and you're doing jumps. I don't know.
Like a VR thing.
I would assume. I don't know though. But that will do it here for this segment. Again, we're coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. We'll be back to wrap things up with Final Word next. This is 580 Sports Talk on 580 WIBW. Welcome back to this final segment of 580 Sports Talk for your Wednesday, June 5th. Coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. And Dan on baby watch, which means we won't see him again for the foreseeable future, two-ish weeks. He'll be back on the air. Brendan, as I just mentioned, will be back on Monday. So subscribe to our 580 Sports Talk YouTube channel for the bit and get his reaction on Monday. If we get to 560, we're at 542 last check. Trenton, you got a final word for us?
Yeah, I agree with you, Jay Hunker. On the comment about what I was talking about Bollywood Jr. last night, the second baseman, who was Nick Lofton, was much at fault. Vinny has to block the ball. The way the Royals were defensive aligned, Lofton couldn't get to second base. So you kind of blame that on defensive alignment. Vinny probably picks that ball 9 out of 10 times. Bobby, he'll tell you he should have just made that throw. It's okay, though. Kind of a free off day today. So hopefully the Royals can reset. We'll be on the show coming live right after the post-game show wraps up for the Royals. So hopefully they can get a win. Bounce back. He'll be all right. Bobby's going to make plays for him the rest of the 100 games. Great job taking leadership for his fault last night.
All right, that's your final word. My final word today is, as soon as we heard about Elmarco Jackson out for the season due to patella tendon injury, Kansas basketball is doing Kansas basketball things as one of the top teams over the years in this country. And they just get another guy within 3 hours, and a guy that can come in and make a mark on this team in the rotation that they're going to use. And I think that's huge. But for Trenton, I'm Spencer saying so long. We'll talk to you tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk.